The American public has always been taken in by those wacky murderers and rapists of the 1700s, pirates. That fascination is perhaps best exemplified by the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, which debuted for children at Disneyland in 1967, and would later go on to inspire a hit film franchise, also for children. Plus, the ride inspired one Ron Gilbert, who would go on to become a programmer working for LucasArts. After the invention of the SCUM engine for Gilbert's 1985 adventure game Maniac Mansion, LucasArts utilized the platform for games like Loom and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. When he finally found himself with some more free time, Gilbert returned to his love of Pirates of the Caribbean and the 1987 novel On Stranger Tides for inspiration. He developed The Secret of Monkey Island, alongside writers Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman. It tells the story of wannabe pirate Guybrush Threepwood, who must prove himself as a sword fighter and take on the evil ghost pirate LeChuck. Still frustrated by the punishing nature of competing adventure games of the day, Gilbert purposefully made it nearly impossible to die or get stuck in Monkey Island, letting players become fully immersed in the game's world and humor without having to worry about cheap deaths and loss of progress. Monkey Island wormed its way into the hearts of 90s gamers. More accessible and polished than any previous SCUM efforts, it became the model for all of LucasArts' adventure games going forward. We've covered Sid Meier's Pirates, but today we're exploring Ron Gilbert's Pirates as we search for the secret of Monkey Island. It's a video game podcast.
Wow.
And there's so much to discuss.
So good.
One of us knows all about them.
That's you.
And the other one's a dunce.
That's me.
You're gonna learn about the very best games with two annoying dorks.
Fatality.
From asteroids to Zelda. From adventure to Zork. We have no life, and we feel no shame. We need your help, 'cause we're bad with games. Bad with games. Welcome to the show. My name is Jonathan.
My name is Will.
And we are
Bad with Games. Hooray! It's
That's
us.
us.
We're back. I'm not over at your place anymore. Got the fuck out of there. Thank God.
He's gone. He left. I'm alone, and so is he, and that is how it will remain.
Mm-hmm. I love
I've
being
got
alone.
there's a cat meowing over here, and there's some lawnmowers outside. So immediately
be
the
fine.
show is
It's
just
gonna be fine. You're gonna
chaos.
fix it in post. Nobody's gonna know. It's just if John seems insane, that's what's going on.
I don't know. They'll definitely hear that cat meowing, or maybe they won't. It doesn't
That's
matter.
fine.
Today we're not talking about
Cat
cats. We're talking
episode.
about monkeys.
Monkeys.
We're talking about The Secret of Monkey Island, LucasArts adventure game from 1990, released for various computer platforms, Amiga, MS-DOS, CD-ROM, what have you. And if you are listening to this episode, wherever you get your podcasts, keep in mind that you can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/@badwithgames. And there you can actually watch us playing some of this game this week as we discuss it. And you can also go ahead and contribute to our Patreon, patreon.com/badwithgames, because the patrons are the people who are keeping us going strong every single week. And we love if you support the show. So
We do
excited to
love
be
that.
here with all of you. I'm going crazy because I can hear this fucking lawnmower so fucking loud. And this
It's gonna
episode's off
be
to a
okay.
terrible start.
It's gonna be okay. I promise you. Everything's gonna be fine.
It's been a long week, and we're recording later than usual, and
it's his fault this time and not mine. Rare occurrence.
Well, I wouldn't say it's my fault because I have
would say
very
that. It is
valid
your
reasons
fault.
for it. No, when
Yeah,
you mess
but
up,
it
it's your
is
fault.
Kind of your fault.
For me, this was
But
this
it's
was,
okay. I don't blame you. You know, I have grace in my heart. I forgive.
Yeah. All right. Well, listeners, you're in for a treat this week because we're going to get to talk about The Secret of Monkey Island. As I said, we previously discussed a number of text adventures and graphic adventures. Most recently, we covered Maniac Mansion, which was the first game with the Scum engine that these games were made on, designed by Ron Gilbert as well, who is the lead designer of this game. So we're continuing on that path, and now we are really. This is the game that really kicks off the '90s adventure game phenomenon in a big way. I mean, not that people might take issue with me saying that because it wasn't like the biggest seller or anything like that, but in the 90s this genre of game was very, very popular, certainly much more popular than it is today. And I consider this period from here on to like the end of the 90s for LucasArts to be kind of the golden age of this genre.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how people are saying that unless you are like getting into the nitty gritty on what kicks off means exactly, because like in terms of this genre of games, like this is one that I've heard of. It's one of the big ones. If it comes before any of the other big ones that I had heard of, and I'm pretty sure it does, then yeah, I don't see how it, maybe Maniac Mansion. Maybe we already kicked it off. I don't know. That's what I'm here to find out. I'm bad with games. I learned from him.
That's the dynamic of the show. It's going to be a good show today. Yeah, I mean, because The Secret of Monkey Island originally wasn't like a huge seller, and there was already Maniac Mansion and King's Quest and all these other games in the 80s, but this, even more so than Maniac Mansion, we were starting to see that this template get set in stone, and Monkey Island is really where it all came together. And if you once you've played this, you kind of have a sense of what pretty much every other 90s adventure game is very similar to this one in terms of mechanics, UI, often the sense of humor. A lot of that DNA, which to be fair originates in Maniac Mansion, it's really solidified, I think, in this game.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Is this one of the first? Maybe it's not, because it's interesting because I go on this journey, right, where I have a vague idea of what all of these games are like in terms of, oh, these are different types of games, these are genres, these are some of the names, but I haven't really played them or experienced them before. And then in this podcast, we're really starting from the beginning. So I'm kind of coming in with this expectation on all of these games that like we are ever evolving at this point, because that's been my experience, right? Like we have Cave Adventure and we have Zork, and then we have King's Quest, we have Maniac Man. Like every game we're doing a little bit with it, we're tweaking it, we're building, and maybe it's becoming a little more familiar. And at a certain point, it's going to stop becoming more familiar and just become the thing that I know it as. And I'm wondering if for like point and click adventure games, if like is that, because this is a lot more similar to what I envision this genre as, not that it's a modern genre really, but it feels like we might be breaking into a point where as we play more of these, I'm going to start being like, oh, okay, this is just a different take on the same thing, as opposed to look at all of the upgrades and differences we've made. It's interesting to see us coming to that. I guess there's some of that with like old school platformers, but there's so much in terms of that branching out into 3D or not or whatever. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, this is in many ways kind of the peak of the of the form. I mean, we'll see like there's still text verbs on screen in Monkey Island, so that's probably the biggest thing that does go away. Pretty fairly early on in the 90s that they stopped doing the verbs, so we completely moved away from text at all.
Interesting.
And then there are a few 3D ones as well, but by and large, like if you look at the new adventure games that are coming out on Steam that are sort of like, they're still like indie developers who are making this style of game nowadays, it's very recognizable as they're a throwback to this era. It's still with the exception of maybe verbs versus a cursor or something. It's
Yeah.
not that unrecognizable from Monkey Island.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. This is an old genre, right? Like, so it's not that surprising that this is one of the first ones that we're really hitting kind of like, oh, this is just recognizable as the thing. We're not making a
Right,
ton more progress.
because it
Like
ended like
Wolfenstein,
8
right?
years
Last
later.
week, right? Like,
Right.
it's like, oh, they're still making new ones of these. Like,
Right.
all the new games are basically in this fucking style. So, whereas this, it's like, yeah, the ones that everybody loved are from this time period. Yeah, that is interesting that they move away from text. I'll have to see about that because I don't know. I feel like you lose something in that, but maybe you don't. We'll see when we get there. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that a little bit today.
Hmm.
Well, you said that you had heard of this game before, so do you have
Hmm.
any more lore that we need to learn?
Yeah, I mean, this game is the sort of thing that has existed in the background. It's the sort of thing that I've known about. I've had friends who really liked this game, not just you. But like when I was
Well, you said
younger,
friends.
I guess that's true. Um, you see things about it occasionally on the internet. So I knew a little bit about it, but mostly just snippets and maybe like little Easter eggs, right? Like I knew this was a point and click adventure game from the 90s. I knew the name Guybrush Threepwood. I knew sort of the like jokey, irreverent style of it. Um, I think I had at one point heard of like the gopher repellent as like an item that like has a use, but like seems weird. And I didn't really know anything about that, but, like, when I saw that I got it in my inventory, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I remember somebody talking about this at one point." I believe I did know the way that you could die in this game, but I didn't know where it would come up or how it would happen or what you were actually supposed to do. But it's just, like, weird little facts that have trickled into my head from people talking about it in the background. But as far as, like, what actually is the plot, what are any of the things that you do, I don't know that I had any idea coming into this what any of that was. I think probably could have told you it was vaguely piracy associated, kind of, maybe.
Yeah, it's funny because it's hard for me to gauge really what the familiarity the general public has with this
Mhm,
series because I am sort of more steeped in that world. So to me, it's like, of course, seems like common knowledge. And I know that, like, I feel that everyone kind of knows the name Monkey Island. They've heard of these games. But even the biggest point and click adventure game is pretty niche at this
mhm.
point. So it's like, what do even gamers you have to be kind of part of a subset of gamers to really know what these are all about. It doesn't surprise me too much that you had friends who were into it because I would almost compare the being a fan of adventure games, so specifically the comedic LucasArts ones, and I would extend this to like King's Quest and Space Quest as well in the 90s, to sort of like being a fan of Hitchhiker's Guide or Monty
Mhm,
Python, or Mel Brooks is another
mhm.
comparison that I came to mind while playing this game again this week. That it really there's something about it that very much appeals to the I'm a 15-year-old dork and I've just discovered this comedic thing that's poking fun at all this stuff and that
Mhm.
tickles my brain.
Yeah, that is a very specific subclass of, like, Gen X into like, young Gen X into older millennial, like, nerd. Like, there's a specific type that, I mean, for sure, I fell into to some degree and hung around with, and I mean, that is the other thing, like, I hang out with you, right? I am the kind of person who
So
hangs out with you, so, like, it makes sense that I would hang out with people who would talk about these games.
yeah, it tracks. It all
Mhm,
tracks. For my part, I've I've talked about this to some extent on the show already, but I am a huge fan of these games, and I did not grow up playing them. By the time I discovered point and click adventures, the heyday had come and gone. Although not by much. It's I don't know if this is just by the nature of how quickly the video game technology moves, or if it's just because I was a kid. But at the time, it felt like, oh, this genre is already dead. When in reality, it had probably been like 3 years since the last big one. But at the time, that felt like, wow, ancient history. This stuff. But when I discovered it, I don't know how old I would have been. Probably like 11, 12, somewhere in that range. And it was a very exciting thing for me to stumble upon Monkey Island and all these other LucasArts games, for me in particular, Sam and Max, Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle, all these games, Grim Fandango, on and on and on. The comparison that I would make is almost like someone our age discovering like the Beatles for the first time.
Mm.
and being like, whoa, you're a kid, so your opinion and your understanding of this art form is still evolving. And maybe you've heard some music, but you're like, whoa, what is this band like did all this stuff, this is crazy. And then, hey, if you like this, they have these other albums, and if you like that, there's this other band too. Did you know what about the Rolling Stones? Go check them out. And it's this snowball effect of discovery. And that is kind of what I felt like in the early 2000s, of going online and just finding this treasure trove that all these games already existed and were ready and available to play. And also, there was a big part of it that was exciting because these games were no longer readily available. It's not like today where there's now Monkey Island remakes. Some of these adventure games are still kind of hard to find, but a lot of them, they're on Steam or they're on Good Old Games, GOG. There are ways to like officially procure them for the most part. At the time, there really weren't. And pretty much the only way to play a lot of these was through piracy and emulation.
Interesting.
And not that I would ever do that.
Oh no, I just mean maybe it's a little bit thematically appropriate.
You know what? You're onto something with that. The Scum VM was the Scum virtual machine that I'm pretty sure was a fan-made thing. It's not like official. But that was the thing you could get, and it would play all these games. And to me, as a kid, getting access to this all at once was like Christmas. It was like, oh my God, this new thing that I've now learned that I love. There's an easy way to play it. There's a community that now there's all these inside jokes I can be a part of now. It was a learning about Monty Python or Hitchhiker's Guide for me.
Yeah. I mean, like I 100% see that, and it feels very similar to me in those respects too. I mean, were you? I'm sure to some extent you were a Hitchhiker's Guide kid. Were you like a big Hitchhiker's Guide kid, or these other things? Any of these?
I mean, I was big in the sense that like I had all the books and I loved them.
Okay.
I wasn't going to Hitchhiker's Guide summer camp.
You didn't like wear bathrobes on Thursdays or anything like that.
No, I didn't do that.
Carry a towel around with you.
I mean, the difference is I don't think I really had any friends who were also into it. So it was really just my own thing, or through people on the internet, that I was able to embrace that.
Gotcha.
And maybe saved me from public humiliation.
Yeah, certainly possible. So Scum VM, which you had me download this time. So I didn't.
That's right. Still
for
around.
Maniac Mansion, we just played it on DOS. And for this, you had me get Scum VM. That would have played Maniac Mansion as well.
Yes. Now it's a little bit tricky because there are different versions of all these games. Of course, they were ported to multiple different types of machines, and I didn't put tons of thought into this. It's possible that I think Maniac Mansion was just easier to find in that original format that it was playable in, and for some reason, Secret of Monkey Island was a little bit trickier.
And this is fan made, because I didn't know that this is a fan made
I
thing
mean, fan
or
made in the sense
platform.
that like yeah, like the Scum engine was, invented in house by LucasArts. That's what these games are
Uh
built
huh.
on. But like Scum VM was it was an emulator somebody put together using it to make these games more accessible.
Gotcha. Okay, but that's not like an official, platform that you
No,
could run these on from back
it,
whenever.
it's
Okay.
not like in 1990 you weren't downloading this and using this to play Monkey Island.
Right.
And speaking of the different platforms, we should also note that the version we played this week actually is not the original
I was
version
going
of
to
the
ask
game.
about this because I saw on Wikipedia or something that there were like re-releases with like different colors, and I couldn't tell because I was like, I feel like this is more like colorful or something than what they're describing, but I also am seeing something about like voice acting, which I don't think this has. So I wasn't sure what to make of it.
Yeah, so we played the 1992 CD-ROM version of the game,
Okay.
which has more colors, more music, and also has three fewer verbs to choose from. There are 12 in the original, only
Ah, yes.
9
Yes,
in
What
our
what got
version.
cut? I'm curious.
The cuts were walk, which they just made like the
Which is
default,
okay. Sure.
and turn on and turn off, which I don't even know where those would be used, but I assume they just replaced them with use.
Yeah, or like pull or push maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other difference is that in the original game, your inventory was just text. This version, they have
Mm.
images.
Okay.
So, and
Gotcha.
there might be a couple
That might
tweaks
have.
to some of the other stuff, but
I feel like that would have made things way harder if the inventory was text. Or not things, but a couple of things at least. Interesting. Okay.
potentially. So that's what we did. Before we get into it proper, though, we do need to break down the box art.
Yes, the box art. I love breaking down that box art. Let me take a look at this here.
It's time to break
Hmm.
it down in box art town. Yeah. Okay. We're
I'm
looking at
looking
the
at it.
cover of The Secret of Monkey Island. It says a graphic adventure by Ron Gilbert on the cover because that's
Hmm.
what it is. And it's a big, what would you, I want to say a montage, but that's not the correct word. It's a, it's a hodgepodge of different elements. In
That's
the
a good
lower
one.
right, you see the many of the main characters: Guybrush, Elaine, LeChuck, a monkey. In the top
Oh, I
right,
guess that's LeChuck. Yeah, sure. Okay.
there's a
I'm not used
ghost
to seeing
pirate
him not
ship.
like blue.
Yeah, there's a ghost pirate ship in the background. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's one of the other pirates. I just assumed.
Hmm.
There's a big skull in the middle, and over on the side, you see a giant monkey head and a couple of cannibals. This art, which I didn't realize,
Hmm.
and I should have said because it's the same for Maniac Mansion's box art, was illustrated by Steve Purcell, who worked at LucasArts on a lot of these games. He's the creator of Sam and Max. He currently
Okay.
works for Pixar,
Okay.
and I didn't realize that he was the artist of both of these covers, but he is the artist here. And I would say this art, to describe it for anyone listening, is very certainly cinematic, like Maniac Mansions was, but even more so now reminiscent of Drew Struzan's Star Wars and Indiana
Hmm.
Jones posters, that kind of thing, where you have the big heads all sort of floating around with different elements from the story in
Yeah.
play. What say you?
What say I?
Did I startle you with that?
Yeah, I mean, I do like this. I like the style of it. I like that the background has this kind of split color scheme, right? Like there's the cannibals and monkey head and the ghost ship on the other, so you've got this bright yellow and green and this like dark purple and blue. They're illuminating the different sides of the big skull in the middle, so you've kind of, I think that that is like a striking color scheme. Um, I like the characters running forward here. I do wish I recognized more of the guys in the back. I feel like some of these are just generic pirates, whereas there are some individuals that they could have been. Um, this Guybrush I don't mind at all, which I'm a little bit surprised about because I did find myself when playing this game feeling like Guybrush as a character works best pixelated and with no detail. Like when they
Yeah.
zoomed in and you saw his face for real, I just kept thinking like, "Oh, this is worse than when he's just like a dot on a blank face." And I was also, because the thing is so cinematic, I was thinking, I can't imagine who would play this guy. He shouldn't have detail. What's that? But I do think that his face here is sufficiently like plain and goofy and a little bit childish looking, that it kind of works for me. He's got this like really wide-eyed stare directly at you, the viewer. I like it. I think the art's good.
Yeah, this is something I wanted to bring up during the episode too, but Guybrush Threepwood, and this kind of goes for a lot of the designs in the game, but him in particular, he does have this weird quality of like, I love his sprite in the game, and then, but I don't really want to know what he looks like.
Hmm.
He doesn't. He's very weirdly formless and shapeless in his facial features,
Hmm.
but in a perfect way that your imagination can fill in the blanks. And I think honestly, the games that have come out after the first two have struggled with
Hmm.
deciding what Guybrush should actually look like.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, because I clicked on his page on Wikipedia, so I saw a lot of images of him from other games, and I wasn't really a fan of any of them. Outside of the pixel art, I think this is probably my favorite one I've seen, including the like more animatic. Animatic is that the word? The more
I
like
loved it.
detailed versions of him from within the game.
Yeah, yeah.
He just looks very blank here.
I like his design in Curse of Monkey Island, which is the third game, which is much more cartoonish and
Hmm.
exaggerated. But then there's, they did a remake of the first two games with a new art style and voice acting, and I cannot play them because I
Mm.
find the design of Guybrush Threepwood's face in those games to be distractingly ugly.
Hmm.
They gave him this giant forehead. His face does not look cute or charming. It's just this ugly, ugly, horrible
Hmm.
expression on its dumb, dull, slack-jawed face. I really, really dislike it. So props to them for
Uh,
getting it right here. Oh yeah, and I see even in the bottom right, you can see Purcell is written on somebody's
yeah, look at that. I
sash
see
or
that.
something.
That's him.
That's nice. Yeah, and there's a lot of elements here that are like, oh, you're not going to really know. These are all things from the game, and if you play, you'll figure them out. Obviously, the big skull definitely calls Pirates of the Caribbean to mind. I
Hmm.
mean, I guess it's just pirates in general, the Jolly Roger flag, but
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe I'm just Pirates of the Caribbean brained because that became pirates since since that movie came out. That's just been the culture of pirate
Yeah.
media.
We did talk about this with Sid Meier's Pirates that, I'm not particularly up on all of my pirate media. Right? Like, okay, Pirates of the Caribbean, the movie, the ride. There's this. I actually
The planet.
reread Treasure Island since then for the first time since I was a
Wow.
kid because I was like, of other pirate media? Yeah, I think you mentioned it that this game was partially inspired by a book or something.
Yeah,
Let's
there's
see,
a book
on Stranger
on Stranger
Tides.
Tides, which also became the basis for the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie, if you
Mm,
recall.
yes. Well, I'd never watched past the
I
first
didn't
one,
see it, but I
so.
remembered the title.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should, if we do another Monkey Island game, we should consider maybe throwing on Stranger Tides into
I
the
wouldn't mind
Patreon
doing the
mix.
the Pirates movies either, because I'll tell you. I mean, look, I guess it's the snake eating its own tail or
Hmm.
something, but Pirates and Pirates 2 in particular, the movie Dead Man's Chest, I remember watching and being like, they just stole so much from Monkey Island for this movie. Like they should have called this the Monkey Island movie.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Monkey Island's based on pirates, and this was also
Yeah,
based on
yeah.
pirates. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I know. I know. It
the
all
ride.
comes full circle. What are you gonna do? Anyway, so Secret of Monkey Island. Also, another title, another box art that has the guy's name on the front, which is
Yep.
a sort of a, but clearly Lucas Arts and or Ron Gilbert had kind of made that commitment, I
Hmm.
guess. I don't know if that was in his contract or if he
Yeah.
just did it and they said, we don't care,
I mean, I do
but it
like it.
worked.
I gotta. It is interesting seeing a graphic adventure by Ron Gilbert here. Like the way that that's written, it does almost read like this is the cover of like a graphic novel rather than a movie. Like right, like it's by Ron Gilbert. Right, there's his name. That's the
Yeah,
author. You could see something like this on a bookshelf at Barnes and Noble, maybe.
sure. I could if I was drunk enough. Well, when we covered Maniac Mansion, you were pretty positive on that game. And one of the things you were marked on too, speaking of the cinematic elements, was how much it felt more so than anything we had played up until this point, like you were experiencing a story
Hmm.
rather than just, you know, playing a game where you're a guy who does stuff in a game.
Hmm.
And Monkey Island, I think it's safe to say, takes that even a few steps further.
Hmm.
What was your initial impression of the game? How did you manage to make your way through it? How does this one compare to you to our past adventure game playing?
Yeah, so you are right that this is a massive step up in being a story and storytelling. In some ways, uh, it's less impactful because of two things. A, it's so much more akin to what I would expect story. Like Maniac Mansion is like, holy shit, they're trying to do a story. I haven't seen this before, really. And in this game, it's like, yeah, that's a story like they sometimes have in video games. So like it does it you almost take it for granted. But also I do feel like there's kind of this thing where it's like, yeah, going from 0 to 1 is a much bigger difference than 1 to 2, right? Like in some ways, like even though this is a massive step up from um Maniac Mansion from ground up is like a larger step relatively. um, so I didn't quite get quite the same impact of like, holy shit, there's a story here. Um, because the
Yeah.
mere fact of it wasn't blowing me away like it was over there. But you know, if you're just actually looking at it, yes, I mean this game has a story, right? Much more so than Maniac Mansion, right? This game has a story. It leads you through a story. Yes, you don't always quite have to do everything in like a specific order, but um basically everything you do is like part of the story, right? In Maniac Mansion, you often do find yourself being all like, yeah, there's like a story and these characters have their side plots, but like also sometimes these side plots aren't for your characters, or this thing you're doing is just a thing you're kind of doing for fun. In this game, you do really kind of feel like everything you're doing is part of the story. You're one guy, this is all going to that story. There are kind of side stories, but they all tie back into the main plot. So it is one story. If you were adapting this, you would have to make decisions about what to leave in and what to cut, as opposed to Maniac Mansion, where you would kind of have to make decisions about like what you wanted to bother to put in, because there's only so much you have to. I think.
Yeah, Maniac Mansion, you would still have to decide, well, what is the
Right.
plot?
Right. But it would be like it would be the other option. You'd be like, okay, I'm like 10% full, and then I got to decide what to fill the other part up with. Whereas with this, you'd be like, okay, I'm 200% full. I got to decide what to cut. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference between the two, Maniac Mansion introduced the idea of the cutscenes, but outside of those, there was very little actual dialogue
Yes.
between characters. So most of the story still was what you were actively doing, the puzzle solving,
Hmm.
etc. And in Monkey Island, there's, hardly a minute goes by unless you're at a point where you're just sitting and thinking about a puzzle. There's constantly characters and there's
Hmm.
tons of that was one of the big new innovations in Monkey Island, in addition to other things we talked about, is the dialogue tree.
Hmm.
When you talk to somebody, You click. We didn't really explain what this game is for listeners, but I think they know what it is.
You can
you,
see it on screen.
yeah. If they're viewing, you but when you talk to somebody, you'll have a set of choices. I mean, it feels insane to explain this because this is
Mhm.
so common now in games. But like, depending on what you say, that will then open up new branches of dialogue to explore. And sometimes they're just jokes. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's just which joke do you want to tell? And sometimes they lead to more important plot things that you need to do. And sometimes they even build puzzles into those, particularly when we talk about the sword fighting. That's a big part of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think like that's the big difference. Like there are, unlike Maniac Mansion, I have a sense of who pretty much every character in this game is because they actually talk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how quickly that, moves to a more modern-ish feeling, system as well because, you know, I mean, first of all, this is, like, one of the biggest departures, I think, from text adventures, uh, in the sense of if you wanted to adapt Maniac Mansion to a text adventure, I mean, you basically could, right? Like, you wouldn't get to see it, and you wouldn't get to hear it, and you wouldn't get to have the, like, tactile feel of moving the cursor around, um, but, like, and that would fundamentally change the game for the worse, probably. But like everything that you do in that game, I guess there's a time-based thing in the
Yeah, but
basement with
there's
getting
been
out.
time-based stuff in text games too, I'm pretty sure. You could
Yeah,
recreate it.
yeah, you probably could. But in this game, it would start becoming very difficult to do the dialogue trees because like you can't expect the player to type in Guybrush's answer. You'd almost have to you'd either have to give them a list of options, which would feel very weird in a game where otherwise you're just typing in exactly what you do, or you would like have to have all the conversations be one-sided and the main character doesn't talk. So this is this idea of like you have a lot of ways that you can talk and behave is it feels like a huge departure to me. It feels like a big innovation in that it's not easily recreatable going back. Like it's not just building on that and doing and making it more interesting. It's like doing something new. And yet despite the fact that this is new, a lot of these dialogue things are I guess more complicated in their construction than you might expect them to be in some sense. Like they're not like these crazy things that alter the outcome of the story depending on what you say exactly. Um but you might expect that you have like three options for what to say and each one gives you an answer and then once you've done all of them you're done. But sometimes you'll have like five of them, and there are several paths to get to the information that you need. And once you get that information, then some of them will close off that you didn't even explore. Like I didn't ask about those yet. Oh, but they were going to get to the same point here. We're just having a conversation. The fact that you aren't just kind of like clicking through every single option all the time does make it feel a little bit more organic. Like I'm choosing how to go through this conversation and what to say, even though it's basically going to go the same way every time. Like it doesn't really matter. I'm just being stupid and jokey here. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
I
mean,
did, yeah. Oh, yeah.
this leads to this is one of my own the mini puzzle that is now involved in every dialogue tree and adventure game for me is which of these options are just jokes that I can click on
Mhm.
that won't progress the conversation so
Mm.
that I can see all the jokes before they're no longer available. Trying to like suss out which things
Mhm.
I shouldn't do. I want to say as somebody who it's funny that you said that about the text adventure thing because I have been not for a while now, but I was playing around with Inform, which is a
Mhm.
text adventure scripting language program, trying to play with making my own text adventures. And one of the options that I had implemented in this little and very little what I had been kind of playing with and putting together was sort of I don't want to call it I guess it's a plugin, something somebody had made, a pre-built script that allowed you to have dialogue like in Monkey Island, where it would present the options and then you would like one, two, three, four in
Mhm.
lines, and then you would just type 2. And then depending on what that did, that might open up new lines of
Yeah.
dialogue, just like this. And now I'm like, I wonder, it's interesting. Obviously it's different in text form, but for me, I'm more thinking of it like, well, this is a point and click adventure
Mhm.
game, but I just can't make art, so it's text.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know
it's interesting because like I did immediately think of basically that exact solution when I was saying it, but it does feel different in that like it in this one, like in a text adventure, you're typing everything you do, right? So whereas in this one, if I want to take boat, then I'm just going to click take and click boat, right? I'm physically trying to grab it. If I want to do something with words, then I click the words that I want. But it would feel weird to me, I think, and maybe this is wrong, but in my mind it would feel incongruous to say if I want to take the boat, I type out take boat, but if I want to ask the question, I don't type ask what's going on here. I have to say one because that's what's going on here. Like, isn't that odd? Doesn't that feel weird? I don't know.
I think probably it hurts that your experience with text adventures are these early ones, which
Mm,
maybe is not necessarily even not representative of most of them, even the later ones. But they tend to lean more into the part of the puzzle is trying to figure out what do I type,
mhm,
and for me, because I'm so much more steeped in the graphic adventure games, and even the ones that, like I said, don't have verbs at all, that'll just be like look at and use, basically, are kind of your only two things that you need a lot of the times.
mhm.
Yeah, just my mindset is thinking, but if you're going into it like, oh, I'm typing stuff, then yeah, I could see how you might think that, but it probably depends on the overall, like, how the rest of the game is designed. I don't know that I've
That's
ever
probably
seen, to
true.
be honest, like, I don't know how many text adventures attempted to do that kind of thing, other
Yeah.
than like modern fan ones, because by the time that was a
Yeah.
thing, we had moved beyond text.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying. This feels like it feels very fundamentally different. Like all of these other things felt like we're taking text adventures and we're making them graphic. This kind of feels like, well, now that we are graphic, I can do something that's specific to the graphic, interface. And then the
Yeah.
text adventures that are doing it are like, well, what if I made the graphic interface in text, right? Like it's not native to the medium in some way.
I would have said even more so than the text, there's things that make this uh there are certain puzzles that really can only be
Hmm.
done the way they do them with graphics. I guess for anyone listening
Hmm.
to this, there may be spoilers ahead for puzzle solutions to the Secret of Monkey Island, so listen with caution. But like there's a puzzle where you need to stand on a board in a certain spot to make the other end click
Hmm.
up. And I don't know, like in a text event, it's not really hit the same as if you had to type step on right end of plank, you know?
Yeah.
So they do get to play around with more stuff like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's a few other examples of that I can't think of, but yeah.
Another thing that I really like about the text that I sort of hinted at earlier, it characterizes Guybrush a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you are, you know, like if you're playing, what's the nerd guy? Ed? Is that no? Ed is all of the bad guys. What's the
Bernard.
Bernard? If you're playing like Bernard versus if you're
Fred is the
playing
bad guy, by the
Razor,
way.
sure, yeah. Um,
I got chastised in a YouTube comment because I called him Dr. Ed and it's Dr. Fred.
Yeah, they're all different, whatever. But
Go ahead.
fuck you, YouTube comment. Yeah, but if you're playing Bernard versus if you're playing Razor, the difference in personality is basically just like there's a couple different things that they can interact with. There's like one or two things they can't interact with, and they look different. And that does bring some personality, but they're very it does still make them very caricaturish. There's only so far you can go. When you've got Guybrush's options, you can do a lot more to characterize him as he's not just like wisecracking. He's a very specific type, right? And all the other characters you talk to are very specific types. Um and that comes through with that dialogue, and I really like that. In fact, I think that that serves a mechanical purpose in this game beyond just characterize like just a narrative one. um I found that there were a number of times where puzzle solutions became more obvious because of the knowledge of Guybrush's character, right? Where you might come up to a puzzle and you might be all like, that's stupid, right? That's a dumb way to do. Like, I would not even think to do that because it's fucking stupid. Like, imagine in Colossal Cave Adventure with like Odysseus, right? What is stupid fucking oh, with your bare hands? Yes, and then you kill it, right? That's stupid. You wouldn't even think to do this unless you're just fucking around. But because you've now spent the first several hours of this game doing nothing but walking up to random characters and fucking around with them and not getting punished for it because that's just the style of the game, and you've been doing that through dialogue, you now come up to a puzzle and you go, what if I did something stupid and fucked around with it? And hey, presto, it worked. That was correct. Because like that to me is very good design. It keeps the tone consistent. Like it sets the tone through the dialogue and the writing, and then the solutions for the puzzles are consistent with the tone that you've set, and therefore more intuitive than they would have been had you not done that. I think that there is some coherency there that really works well, even if the dialogue isn't the puzzle or has nothing to do with the puzzle.
Yeah, I think that's right. The two feed into each other in a way that I hadn't really consciously considered. And that's also, I mean, Maniac Mansion had some of this too. Like some of those puzzles were silly, but I think Monkey Island really is establishing going forward these LucasArts games how some puzzles will have solutions that aren't just silly, but are like
Hmm.
sometimes they're literally puns. They just don't make
Yeah.
sense in the real world. You have to very much think outside the box to accomplish them. Yeah, I would go out on a limb and say, I mean, to me, Guybrush Threepwood is one of the greatest video game characters ever made. He is somehow just like his design. He is somehow so characterized and
Hmm.
so specific in his personality, but at the same time, very broad and very easy as a player to imprint yourself on his actions.
Hmm.
Maybe it's easier because I'm also a white man. I don't know. And also I'm kind of dumb. but but it's like he's a blank slate, but also a real character at the same time.
He's a Hitchhiker's fan, so you know him when you see him.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I mean, that his fucking name
Hmm. Hmm.
is so how is it so perfect? Guybrush Threepwood, obviously not a real name, makes no fucking sense. Characters in the game don't understand it, are like, what the hell what is your name again? Say it the wrong way.
Hmm.
It's just something about it is so perfect, the way it rolls off the tongue, instantly memorable, just so weird, sounds weird, feels weird in your
Hmm.
mouth. Just and nobody, it's not like everybody in the game has that weird name, so it makes him stand out in a perfect way.
Hmm.
He's they did a great job with little Guybrush.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just as like some examples, like right off the bat, one of the first things you can do in like the first place you go is there's like a kitchen. And if you try to go in there while the cook is in there, he'll yell at you. But when the cook leaves, you can go in. And you might this is the sort of thing that you might say, I sort of understand dodging characters from Maniac Mansion. But if you hadn't seen that before, you might think to yourself, oh, I'm not supposed to go in there. Right, I'll get in trouble, or there's pirates here. But almost immediately, before even anything like this happens, you just get the option to walk up to these murderous, drunken pirates and just kind of be the biggest, dumbest piece of shit asshole to them. So of course, the instant you're told don't go in there, you go, oh, he's gone. I'm going in there because that's what Guybrush would do, right? There are times later on where people will say like, and don't you go doing anything bad with this when I'm not here, and he'll be like, oh, don't worry, I definitely will not do that. And you're like, okay, well, I know what I'm supposed to do, right? There's a bit very early on where there's you need money, and there's a guy who says "Oh, I can't get rid of this thing," and you're like, "Well, I can't even give them away," and you say, "I'll take one if you pay me," and the guy's like, "Okay, that's fair," right? The fact that not only do you say that, but the world is built such that yes, you're rewarded for that. Of course, he says, "Yes, that's fair." You know, like I do think there's something about Guybrush's character isn't just him. It's also the world around him. It is also the fact that he is like, we haven't talked about yet too much the extent to which you can't really die in this game, but I do think that it's very important to Guybrush's character that you can't be punished. I think that if you went around acting exactly the same, but then sometimes when you were an asshole, someone just stabbed you and you died, it would fundamentally change everything about his character. Right? It's like Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny can't be hurt. Guybrush
Yeah.
can't actually be hurt, right?
I was gonna say he's a Marx brother or an Animaniac.
Mhm.
He's any of these things where they exist to be anarchists, and
Mhm.
they're not punished for it. it's it's just who they are, and it's what they do. Or if they're punished for it, the punishment is get out of here, you, and then you can go right
Yeah.
back and do it again.
Yeah, like there's a point in this where I was like it would be fair to kill me here because I wasn't sure just how hard it was to avoid dying. Um it's basically impossible to die. It's not quite, but it basically is. Where a character basically just says, if you need to get this right. If you get 3 tries and if you don't, I'm going to eat you. And I'm just like I feel like it's hard to have a more fair death than this, right? Like you get multiple tries and he is warning you and you can save whenever you want. If I just keep showing him things and die here, that's fair. I wouldn't even be mad. But I just kept showing him things and after like the 6th thing I was like, "Oh, hey, there's a dialogue option that says, 'Shouldn't you have eaten me by now?'" And okay, I'll just taunt him. "Why haven't you eaten me?" And the guy's like, "I'm not hungry," or something. Right, or I don't
Yeah.
feel like it. Right, it's just like, it's fine, it's fine. Even if they explicitly tell you, "You will die if you do this," they it's fine, you just won't. And if you then call them on it and say, "Shouldn't I be dead?" They just go, "Whatever." Right, like, the game and I think this is a lot of what I'm saying with this dialogue and this character and the puzzles, I think does come back to the biggest strength of this game, which is that all of these things do enhance each other, right? Like the writing and the characterization gives you clues as to how to do the puzzles, and the way that the mechanics of the puzzles work reinforce who the character is. Like these things all connect to each other in a way that like really works, I think.
Ron Gilbert hated Sierra Adventure games so much.
Mhm.
There is a direct joke in this game. At one point, you can walk to a cliff, and it breaks off, and you fall. And a screen comes up just like the Sierra games that says, "You messed up and you're dead." And there's like a little icon for restart, load game. And then a second later, Guybrush bounces right back up and he just says, "Oh, there's a rubber tree down there." And the screen goes away.
I did
And it's
not
sort of,
have that happen. I wish I'd seen that.
yeah, some of
That's good.
these, sometimes I actually hurt myself by, which is ridiculous. I mean,
Mhm,
I've played this game several times before,
mhm,
but I still will forget some of the puzzles. And I even got hurt a little bit by my not truly embracing the, well, you can't die thing just because of my gamer instincts. There's
mhm,
one point where one of the puzzles, you have to find a bunch of bananas to get this monkey to follow you, and you just have to find the bananas and give them all to him. And I kept thinking like, oh, I gave him a couple bananas, it didn't work. I'm worried that if I don't want to give him my last banana, because what if there's not a way to get more bananas and I get screwed? And then I was like, oh wait, I just had to give him all the bananas. There was
mhm,
no deeper puzzle than that. And yeah, little things like that. It's hard for me to gauge, honestly, the overall difficulty of the puzzles in this game, because even the ones I don't remember, I kind of have half fuzzy memories of what to do. I I want to say, I think later adventure games from LucasArts will sometimes go too far in the direction of obscurity and, oh, this puzzle is kooky and weird and therefore it's impossible to figure out. And I think the first Monkey Island game strikes a good balance of actually being a pretty good beginner's adventure game. A lot of the early puzzles I think, are not super hard, and when you do some of them, they will really reward you with like extensive cutscenes and dialogue trees, so that
Mhm.
sometimes just figuring out one little thing will give you a lot to go on. D- How did you find them as a first time player? You said that, you
So
felt the character helped inform them, but yeah, what
mhm.
overall did you find it difficult?
So it's interesting because I found few, if any, of the puzzles to be particularly difficult in terms of like what to do. There were a couple where it was a little bit weird or I didn't quite get it for a while, but a lot of the times, if I didn't like for the most part, most of the puzzles that I was really stuck on, I would get stuck on because of the same reason that I always do, which is there's some thing that's just right there in plain sight that I just didn't see, right? Or
Classic.
like something really obvious and I'm just walking past it. There were also a couple of puzzles that I thought were legitimately kind of bullshit in their construction, not in the thought process behind them, but in the actual gameplay mechanics of like how they worked, right? Where it's like the mechanics of the gameplay are implying to me that this is not a thing I should try, as opposed to as opposed to like the logic of the game. The logic of the game was almost always relatively sound, I thought, even though it's completely ridiculous. um so I did
Mhm.
have a couple of problems with some of those. What I did find was that there is a solution to a lot of this. Some of the mechanical ones, not so much. Those are just bullshit. But there is a big solution to I didn't see it, which is something that Maniac Mansion was doing, which is something that Monkey Island does a lot, but there are a couple of bottlenecks. Which is if I have a dozen things that I'm doing at any one time, then I might get to step one on something and it's really easy, but I just didn't see the thing in plain sight. And I say, well, I have no idea how to do this. Seems impossible. I'll go work on my other dozen things. In the process of doing that, I'm walking back and forth across the map. And on the 10th time, I go, wait a second, how come I never picked that up before? So then I pick it up and I finish off my things and I say, okay, let's go back to this impossible. Oh, I just used that. Okay, easy. Right. Whereas if I have
Mhm.
one thing to do, then I'm just sitting there like, this is impossible. Or am I just stupid? Am I just stupid or is it impossible? If I am missing something obvious, where is it? Do I just have to go to every location and sit there and stare at everything in every location for 10 minutes until I happen to find it? Is that even the correct thing to do, or did I just not figure it out? I don't know. It's frustrating. But, again, if you give me a bunch of things to do at once, it will present itself eventually in the process of doing the other things.
Yeah, I feel like adventure games, many of them sort of have two modes. And one is when you're constantly discovering new locations, new characters, you're picking up items, your dopamine sensors are going off. You're just like,
Mhm.
yeah, pick this up, pick that up. Oh, talk to this one, go through all the dialogue. Oh man, oh my god, all these things. This is funny, yeah.
Mhm.
And then the other half of it is wandering around in relative silence because you
Mhm.
just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And to me, like both, I kind of like both parts. But the second part can sometimes it can be frustrating, but I also don't want just the first part because sometimes even in playing this game,
Mhm.
there honestly were some parts where I was like, I kind of wish I almost feel like the game is in the first half, maybe even too heavy on cutscenes, where
Hmm.
there's so much dialogue constantly happening that I didn't have as many chances to just sit back and think for a while. And maybe that has to do with, again, the fact that I've played this
Yeah.
before and I sort of know what to do.
Yeah, there were probably a number of things that I had to think or figure out that you didn't. Even just simple things like there's a bunch of doors in town that like all link to each other, and there's no point to any of them. Like, I don't know that you would really engage with that if you already know it. But like for me, I have to go in every door and I have to be like, oh, these all go to each other. Is there any point to that? Maybe nope, they're just there for
Right.
fun, And so I do get a lot more beats like that I'm exploring for the first time in between my cutscenes.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. That makes sense.
and also there is a difference between saying I have 5 unfinished tasks and I'm wandering around trying to finish one of them until I run out of ideas, at which point I flip to another one, and by the time I've run through all of them I have ideas for the first one again, and saying I have to run around trying to finish one task and I have no ideas for it, right? There's nothing to distract me and be like, I'm going to think about this now. And at some point, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just sitting here doing nothing, it feels like. Like, there is a different frustration level. And like I said, there are a few bottlenecks in this game where you get stuck with that. And it feels like kind of bullshit. But for the most part, you're not in that mode. For the most part, you are doing a bunch of things.
Yeah, I do really like the progression system of sort of having multiple quest lines,
Hmm.
and you'll find an item for one in part of another,
Hmm.
which just makes the game world as a whole feel more complex. It's not like, oh, everything you're going to need for this puzzle is in this room where the puzzle is.
Hmm.
You're going to have to look around and kind of figure things out. And part of that is also in a lot of these kinds of games is the inventory and the number of items that you pick up
Hmm.
and the how much you just try to use thing on thing and everything in your inventory to see if that works. I wonder how that was for you in this game, because I feel like, again, hard for me as not a new player, but I feel like there's less of that in this game than later adventure games where sometimes you're constantly combining stuff in your inventory. Sometimes that's like a key
Hmm.
part of a lot of puzzles. And in this game, there's a couple times where you have to do stuff like that, but for the most part, it's more about the number of things that you have and the way you need to make them interact
Hmm.
with each other. I don't know. What's my question? What did you think about inventory management?
Yeah, I mean, I liked, generally speaking, the way that the inventory stuff worked. I think there were only 2 points in the game that I thought were complete bullshit. One of because there was one time where I knew exactly what to do and I couldn't get it to work, and I was like, "This sucks." And there was one time where there's an item you have to use with another item, but in any other so when you use an item, it says one of two things will happen. Either you'll say use this item and it'll do something, or you'll say use this item and then the word with will come up on screen and you'll click a second item. There is an item where if you click use on it, it will immediately work, except in the specific scenario where it is the solution to a puzzle, at which point you have to use it with another item.
Go ahead and be specific. Let's just
Well,
get it out.
would you like some spoilers for in terms
Yeah,
of how
yeah,
far I
yeah,
got in
yeah.
this game? How
I
far
think
do you think I got in this game?
oh, spoilers for your progression. I
Hmm.
mean, hmm. my so we had a little extra time this week.
Hmm.
This is one of the games that I really would love for you to play through all the way. I thought I would be very happy if you could have made it to part 3, which is basically the game is split up into 4 parts, but parts 2 and 4 are sort of just they're very short. It's really part 1 is kind of the first half of the game, and part 3 is like another big area where you spend most of your time in the second half of the game. So I don't. I hope that I think that you certainly are capable of getting. I feel like if you had gotten to part 2, which is when you leave Melee Island, you would have pushed through that enough to then at least get to Monkey Island, which is part 3. But So tell me, put me out of my suspense.
So, you're gonna be really happy with me because I did actually finish this game this week.
I'm so happy. I'm
Yay!
so happy for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm. I
I'm thrilled.
these two bullshit
I'm gonna
parts I did
cry.
look up a hint for, and that is because one of them, and you know what? I'm gonna tell you, it did not improve my experience. It helped me see farther, but when I did it, it just made me pissed off. Um, so they were actually the reason I looked them up is because the first one was right before you get to Monkey Island, and I was like, "There's Monkey Island. I don't care if I beat this game, but if I quit right before I get to Monkey Island and it's right fucking there." And I was pissed off because I knew exactly what I had to do, but it just like I couldn't get it to work. Um
Is this is involving the cannon or
this is
something?
involving the cannon. A large
Oh,
part of it
yeah.
has to do with the fact that you can't put gunpowder in the cannon, you can only put it in the cannon nozzle. And I just didn't know there was a cannon nozzle. And I was like, here's the fuse. It's fucking lit. I can't put gunpowder in the cannon. I can fire the cannon, but then it doesn't fucking fire, right? And then, like, oh, here's the pot I have to wear. I can't put it on my head. I don't understand what's happening. I think when I finally, like, looked it up and got the cannon to fire, I didn't put the pot. I don't even know what I needed to do, but like it didn't work, so it fired once and I didn't get in, and I was like, I don't understand. And I tried it again, but it turns out you have to load the cannon with gunpowder again, which I forgot, and I ended up looking at multiple guides and a YouTube video and was like, none of them are having this problem that I'm having, and I don't understand. I probably would never have gotten through this. Uh if they had just let you put gunpowder in the cannon, I would have done this first try. It would have been easy.
You gotta go in the nozzle, my man. This is one of those things where for me, I was just like, "Oh, it doesn't go in the back."
Yeah.
I'll move my cursor around. Oh,
Yeah.
there it is. But I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other things that I missed that I was like that I got stuck on that you just happened to find right away.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, I
just
also got stuck on that same boat for a little bit because there's just like a hatch to it downstairs, and I was like, for
oh
whatever
yeah.
reason, I just didn't see it, and I was like, there's like two
Yeah.
rooms basically. What there's
For
nothing to
me,
do.
the
But
one the maybe I think the worst example of that is on Monkey Island. There is a fort location that I
hmm,
had to wander around with my mouse a lot to
oh,
realize it
interesting,
was there.
interesting. Yeah, I just found that one. That
Yeah,
one
so
was not hard. I
exactly. It's yeah, it's just
I
who
mean, this was
knows.
the other issue that I had was that you get on Monkey Island, and because I had just spent so much time struggling with the guides, almost the first thing I did the moment I ran into any resistance on Monkey Island is I was just like, let's just look up a fucking hint. And I was like, oh, the hint is like, do you have this? And I'm like, okay, well, if I had this, I would know that that's what that was used for. I can't be doing this. And I had to go close that. Like I had to like flush that out of my system because I was just like,
The hints are good. I used the hints. They're good. The hints are
so
good.
that the other bullshit part that I looked up the answer to was on the other ship, the ghost ship. And
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
is right before, and actually there are two of them in a row on there that I just was completely stuck on. And this was right before the ending, so I was like, fuck it, I'm just doing this because I'm right at the ending. So both of these I mostly looked up because I was right before a point where I was like, come on, you're this far. You can't go one screen further. um so the problem, this is what I was trying to describe in the ghost ship. You have keys that you need to get. They're being guarded by
Oh
the
yeah.
ghost of LeChuck. In order
Yeah.
to get them, you need to use your magnetic compass because it's magnetic, so you can pull the keys with the magnet. Which, sounds stupid and unintuitive, but like, it's not the most stupid and unintuitive thing in the game, right? Logically speaking, it's the sort of thing I might have thought of. The problem is, every time you use the compass up until this point, it just tells you where it points. Whereas some items, if I say use it, it'll then come up with the word with, and I'll be like, okay, use with. And so mechanically, not like within the
Mm.
logic of the game's universe, but the mechanics of the game are telling me here that I need to use this compass when I'm in the right situation, when I'm in the right location or point in the story. Whereas these other things, maybe this skull, is something that I have to use with an item. So if I'm looking at the key and I want to interact with the item, my brain has immediately crossed the compass off my list. That's not a thing that interacts with that. Um, and I thought that that was kind of bullshit in the way that it was made.
That's
Not.
very. I'm fascinated by your brain because I also did get stuck on that. I'll just say, like, for the most part, the first half of this game, I pretty much remember all the puzzles, but it's the second half where I get very fuzzy and struggle a little bit more.
Mhm.
And I did not remember the compass thing, even though I had looked at it a number of times, and I'm pretty sure it also does every time say that
Yeah.
there's a very strong magnet in there.
Mhm.
But the whether or not an item says with or not something I ever registered or remembered. That
Mm.
didn't affect me. But
Mm.
I just didn't figure it out for other reasons.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that
yeah.
was the kind of way that I was doing it. And in that same place, there's a guy you have to tickle, and
Yes.
it's interesting because I saw him sleeping. I saw I couldn't get the bottle. I got the feather, and my immediate thought was, I bet if I tickled this guy, he'd drop the bottle. And I said, okay, I'll try using it. And it said, you can't find a ticklish spot on his body. So I was like, okay, well, let's see if I move the cursor over. Maybe it's like the cannon nozzle. I can tickle his feet. Nope, that doesn't work. All right, well, maybe that ticklish thing is telling me I'm on the right track. There's a different ghost I have to tickle. Well, it turns out you just have to be standing next to his feet when you tickle him, which is not how any other interaction in the entire game has
I
worked.
thought you had to. I thought it was about waiting. I thought if you just stood there for a certain amount of time, as he revealed his feet. But maybe I'm wrong.
I think that because I had to look up this one too, because I just was
Yeah.
completely, because both of these were also happening at the same time, so I didn't know which one was first in the progression. It's like
Uh-huh.
maybe to get the key, I have to wake him up. Maybe to wake him up, I have to get the key. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did kind of have to look at these together, and I thought it said you just have to be standing next to his feet, or like maybe you have to do it multiple times or something. But it did seem, it felt like, again, bullshit that it said you can't find a ticklish spot, but there's not like a specific cursor thing that says sleeping ghost's feet. Uh like that like I guess what I'm saying is that a lot of the times I am using what the game is telling me mechanically as clues as to what I'm supposed to do, and for the most part this game does a pretty good job of hinting you as to what that might mean or be.
Mhm.
But like on the occasion when it messes that up, it sucks because there were other things that I was stuck on for a long time, and it wasn't that frustrating, or like I just didn't see this or I didn't think of this, but when I thought of it, it's like, okay, yes, the game did tell me about that,
Yeah,
right?
I'm looking it up. You are correct. You do just have to stand by them. But so I guess I just did that by
You just
accident.
did it the first time, yeah. And
Yeah.
you're invisible, so it's hard to see where you're
Yes.
standing.
Yes. Right.
It sucks.
So I had I had no idea. Yeah. But I think what I do at least appreciate is that I think those trickier puzzles are mostly all contained in that second half or final
Mhm,
section of the game, which is why I feel like this is a good starter adventure game because I think
mhm,
it in the beginning it pushes you forward and it almost acts like a tutorial for how these kinds of games work before
mhm.
they unleash the sinister stuff on you. And
Yeah.
I do think it's tricky because we were trying to play these in a week span of time more or less, but there is, for me at least, some of the enjoyment of these adventure games is the getting stuck. I want to be frustrated
Mhm.
sometimes, and that's a
Yeah.
very tricky balance to strike to the right amount of frustration, and it's not the
Yeah.
same for everybody.
It's and I do think it's worth pointing out, like, I am calling up these specific instances because they were noteworthy for upsetting me in this particular way, but it's not like these were the only areas where I got stuck, and it's not like these were the only areas where I didn't make progress for an hour, right? Um, like,
Mhm.
there were several times on Monkey Island where there was a puzzle and I just didn't know what to do, and I'm just wandering around and I have no fucking clue. But when I did figure it out, it was just like, yes, they did give me a clue. It was an obscure clue, or the solution was stupid as hell, but like I could have known that. I could have seen it. And it gave me a ton of locations to wander around and a ton of different puzzles to work on simultaneously. So at the very least, right, even if I have one puzzle to work on and the solution is not obvious, at the very least, I've got a whole map to just go, is there anything here? Anything here? Anything here? Whereas in both of these ships, A, I feel like the clues they gave me were actively pointing away from what I was supposed to do. Or in other words, I figured out the solution, or with the canon, I figured out the solution. Uh, but it's like the text adventure thing. Like we shouldn't be searching for the right verb when you know what to do, right? If I know I need to fire myself out of that cannon, and I've got the fuse, and I've got the gunpowder, and I've got the helmet, it should just happen effective, like basically.
It's a
You know
little
what I
bit
mean?
like in King's Quest not knowing that a well is a well. Or whatever it was that you didn't recognize.
Yeah, I guess in some sense, but like also the other thing that made him bad is that there were both bottlenecks. When I was on that ship, there's really nothing to like I've done everything on this ship to get to Monkey Island, right? All I need to do is get over there. I do think
Yeah.
actually, based on Guybrush's personality, the first thing I tried was walk to Monkey Island. I was like, who knows? But and in the ghost ship, it's like literally here it is, right? I needed to explore the island. I needed to get to this point on the ghost ship so that I could get the thing, so that I could beat the pirates and save Elaine. And here I am, right? I don't think that I'm supposed to go back to Monkey Island and explore the whole thing and find something I missed,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It's probably right here. So I'm basically just sat here, walking back and forth between two rooms, like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't have anything to divert my attention. I don't have any other problems to work on. And then the solution also wasn't something where I was all like, oh, I should have seen that coming, like, because I either did or I thought there was reason not to. Now, that's why I'm pulling those two things out, or three things or whatever. But it is also notable that these are the only things. Like I beat the entire game, and these are the only things that I am complaining about in this way. You know,
Yeah.
one of the banana puzzles on Monkey Island was really took me fucking forever. But when I did it, I realized, oh yeah, there was something in the notes that that implied I could do this, and I should have
Mm.
thought of that. Um,
That is maybe one thing about this game. You actually can reread those notes in your
yes.
inventory, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
some things I can't remember specifics, but there's at least one or two things, or like in the first part of the game, there's a prisoner
Mhm.
who mentions a flower you need to get,
Yes.
and unless you remember that he said that and were paying attention, I don't think it comes up anywhere else again. And even if you talk to him again, he won't repeat
Yeah.
himself. So you
Yeah.
do need to be like paying attention to some of the dialogue. And maybe if you took a long break or something, you might be screwed on some of those
Yeah,
things.
the prisoner Otis did I noticed that could be a problem because I noticed he talked about that flower and I did not remember that he said that, but I did know I had to feed something to those dogs and I tried feeding them meat and I was like, all right, that didn't work. And then I was just fucking around and I was like, can I maybe like make a different meal that'll do something? Oh, put the flowers in the meat. Well, we'll feed them that. Oh, it worked. And I remembered he did talk about those flowers. He probably told me to do that and I just didn't remember.
It's actually
Um
more subtle than that.
mm,
He tells you the name of the flowers,
mm.
which I believe is in Italian, like translates to it's something like "endormi," which is like to sleep.
Oh, I would not have
Uh,
gotten that.
yeah, I didn't get it either,
Yeah.
but yeah,
But I
that is
got
the
through it.
clue.
He also tells you about a cake that was sent to him
Oh
that I
yes,
kind of forgot about. But fortunately, when I needed the file out of that cake, I did like it just gave me a new dialogue option to be like, "Do you have a file?" And he was like, "Nope, all I've got is this cake someone sent me." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember that. Yes, that cake.
that's
Okay,
a
I get it.
funny
Yeah,
thing too because that's a puzzle that requires you to have knowledge of prison gags
yeah,
in cartoons and
yeah."
movies. Like that expects you to kind of know about pop
hmm
culture a little bit because if you don't, you might be like, why do I want a cake?
Yeah, there are a number of things in here that are sort of like that. I do think it, I say that the game operates on a logic that is internally consistent, and it kind of makes sense when things are stupid. But it is true that part of that logic expands out of the game as well, that you do need to know about that.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about it too much, but this is a comedic game.
Hmm.
And, I mean, how funny did you find it? I think we both said we thought Maniac Mansion was pretty funny.
Hmm.
I think Monkey Island is, I mean, it has many more actual jokes, obviously,
Hmm.
because as a result of there being more dialogue. And I do find that when I'm playing it, it does make me laugh out loud pretty frequently. I think there are some genuinely very funny jokes in here and some puns and things that are so stupid that they become
Hmm.
funny. One of my favorite jokes that I wrote down is when Otis says he hates
Hmm.
conspiracies. It's his least favorite kind of piracy, cons piracy.
Hmm.
Or the fact that you need the troll wants something that seems useful but is
Hmm.
actually useless, and it's a literal red herring.
Hmm. Hmm.
you know things things like this. I mean, the entire character of Stan, the boat salesman, who is
Yeah.
another one of the most more long lasting beloved things from these games.
Hmm.
Yeah, how did you find the humor in this?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I do think this game is exceptionally funny. And a lot of those things all kind of you know, I don't know, they all worked well in terms of, I mean, I guess I already said it in terms of driving along the plot. But yeah, I mean there are so many things in this game that are legitimately really funny. I like the portrayal of the cannibals, the running gag of the one who doesn't eat meat because it's high in cholesterol. Um, I like the running gag of like grog melting through things. There are a lot of references to other Lucasfilm properties that just randomly get scattered in here. There are some fourth wall breaks that are good. Like I like that Guybrush at the end can choose to learn the lesson of never pay more than $20 for a game.
That's
Um,
right.
I like the way that they go out of their way to not even try on some of the story points. Like Guybrush meets Elaine and immediately falls in love with her, and she's like, "Don't worry, I also immediately fell in love with you." Wee, we know it's funny, or like we know it's stupid, like whatever. It's funny, it's good. There are a lot of things like that. There are a lot of dialogue options that are just really good. Um, it is very fun going through as Guybrush and just selecting the options that you think are funny, and it pays off, or at least you aren't punished for it. Stan actually did punish me a little bit because the first time I had to buy a boat for him, the first thing I did was go through all the extras and say, "Wow, gee, Stan, that sounds really useful," because I thought it was really funny. And then he was like, "Well, I'll sell it to you for $10,000," and I was like, "Oh, I think I fucked up."
I think I forgot that was actually how that puzzle works. I just
Yeah,
said no to all of them
yeah.
just to see the
You
results, and then did it.
you have to talk him down. You have to like make him low, threaten to to walk away, or at least I think you probably have to do. Maybe you
Yeah,
just have to
yeah.
say no to all of them. But no, you can drive it down because I was able to drive it down a little bit. I got it down to like from 10,000 to like 6,000 or something by constantly lowballing him at like 2,000 and trying to walk away. But at a
Yeah.
certain point, he just got sick of me and was like, "Fine, walk away if you want." And I had to start over and try from the beginning. Be like, "No,
Yeah.
no, I don't want any of that."
It's a good example of what a dialogue tree puzzle can be. And
Mhm.
I think those are so important for breaking up adventure games because in my mind there are sort of, I don't, maybe there's three main categories of puzzles in these games, like, and
Mhm.
one is dialogue tree, one is maybe environmental puzzle, and one is like stuff in your inventory combiney kind of a puzzle. Maybe
Mhm.
those are rough categories, but I think if you didn't have those dialogue trees, it would become a lot more repetitive. And it's nice to have a different genre of puzzle to break things up there. Um, yeah, you gotta admire this game's dedication to never taking itself seriously ever once. And in 1990, I mean, it's kind of ahead of the curve in being. That's why I kind of like compared it to Mel Brooks and like parody movies, because other than maybe LucasArts themselves and like a handful of text adventures, comedy in games was not really. I mean, even now there aren't very many funny games. It's pretty hard to be funny in a video game.
Hmm.
And they were doing it really well, really early on, in a way that has aged well. It's the most all of these jokes still land. Maybe you might object to the depiction of the cannibals on the island, but other than that,
Yeah.
there's like nothing problematic. In fact, there's actually a fair number of like diverse characters in the cast,
Hmm.
which like probably more diverse than fucking Pirates of the Caribbean the movie was, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, even the cannibals, I was looking at it and I was like, there's a part of me that wants to go, is this racist? But there's another part of me that just says, I feel like in a lot of ways, I'm a white guy, so obviously I get to talk about this sort of thing, and
yeah, yeah,
everybody's got
yeah,
to listen to my
yeah,
opinion
yeah,
on it.
yeah, yeah. Please,
But there were
please.
a lot of points there I was just like, I mean, I do think that this works for me because you've leaned so heavily into all the tropes aesthetically, but then all of these guys just kind of talk like normal people. And the joke is that there's such a large incongruence between the fact that these are just some guys, but then they're wearing,
Yeah,
racist cannibal masks and whatever. It's like, but they're
yeah,
just kind of talking to each other and being like, and talking to you and bantering with you and making fun of you and whatever.
yeah,
It works
yeah.
for me, I think, at least.
It's so over the top that it's like you're just
Mhm.
obviously not supposed to take any of this seriously.
Yeah, like at no point do you look at these guys and go like, "Oh, what a bunch of uncultured, evil savages." It's like, no, it's funny because they've taken on that aesthetic, but they're just some more characters.
Yeah, if you're listening and you did that, then you might be the problem. I don't know. That might be something with you. I mean, I don't know how many times you got re-locked up in their prison, but at one point they reinforced the door with a metal like alarm with an armed indicator on the outside. Quite funny, quite humorous stuff, I must say. I mean, I feel like the big centerpiece of the game, and the other iconic thing that we haven't talked about that much, is the sword fighting, which is the big dialogue tree puzzle of the game. Of course, there's no action in the game.
Hmm.
It kind of, when you sword fight with someone, it sort of looks like Sid Meier's Pirates. I
Hmm.
think I maybe said when we played Pirates, I wondered if this game was a reference to that.
Yeah, it
Um,
does kind of look like that.
but instead of actually having to time your moves, you are trading insults with each other. And the whole game is that you need to basically get them to give you the retort, the punchline to various insults in order to
Hmm.
learn them, so that you can build up your vocabulary of insults to be a better insult fighter. A little known weird fact that most, or if not all, of these insults were written by Orson Scott Card, who stopped by Skywalker Ranch one day while they were making this game and helped them write these insults. The guy just can't stay out of our video games.
That's
And
pretty funny.
so I'm curious what you thought about this section, because it's very, I feel like it's iconic because it's just memorable and very different from anything in any other game. I do find it, especially on replay, a part of the game that kind of drags,
Hmm.
because it's not really a puzzle in the sense that you're trying to figure something out. It does just require you to do a bunch of fights and click a bunch of the same dialogue options repeatedly until you get the ones that you need. I think it pays off at the end, the way that you then use the same
Hmm.
punchlines for different setups, which I think is really clever. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think about
I
it?
feel like I'm gonna sort of reverse your take on it in a way here. So I can see what you're saying as a thing that would be true on replay, but the first time
Mhm.
I found it to be quite fun because I did it was clear, obvious, like right at the start what I was supposed to do. So like that wasn't a problem where I was just like I don't know what to do. Um, and one of the things that was fun was I kind of, I didn't go into it knowing what all the retorts would be or knowing all of the things that might be said. So there is this kind of like collectible aspect to it, right? Where I go in there and I'm all like, ooh, that's a new one. I haven't seen
Yeah.
that one yet. I should use that on the next guy. Or just being all like, does this guy know the answer to this one? Well, I wonder what the answer to this one. Oh, he doesn't know it. Damn. All right, I beat him, I guess. And it also kind of has this fun element of reversing things where beating the opponent was like kind of bad because it means they probably didn't give you anything. But if they beat
Yeah.
you, that means they probably gave you the answer to a lot of stuff you needed. Um, and of course, there's no consequence for losing. So all of that I found to be quite fun, just kind of like going back and forth on the road and getting into these fights over and over, trying to collect new insults and new uh, retorts. Um, I
Oh,
don't think
good.
you ever use the insults, do you? Other than against the Swordmaster, it's just the retorts.
Um, I think maybe it depends on
Mm.
if I think it's sort of like the same as the sword fights. I don't remember if you ever start one in it. I don't
Yeah,
remember,
I think
but
you just have to have the
maybe you're just on the
retorts.
back foot. Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, I mean that was the other thing. Like it was fun being like, "Ooh, I've got a new insult I can use because I learned it." Uh, when I got to the Swordmaster, of course, the first thing she does is she gives you an insult you haven't seen before, and I just had this problem where I was like, immediately my thought was I probably have to use the retorts on these, and I just didn't find one that I thought was very good. So I was like, maybe I just have to lose to her and learn all her insults and then take them back to the regular people. But when I did that, they were all like, hey, that's not fair. You're using the Swordmaster's insult. So I was like, all right, I guess I was right the first time. So
Huh.
I went back to her and I guessed, and I was like, okay, actually, yes, some of these are good and do fit, but some of them I just don't think are very good. Like, some of them just didn't, for me, work. I was just like, that's not very good.
I think I felt the same way, but also about the original ones you learned too. I
Interesting.
think I think that I mean that is the compromise they had to make in order to make a punchline that works for two different setups. Is that some of them are like, oh yeah, that technically works, but like it's not as clever as this other one. But then once I saw, oh, it kind of works for two things, that's actually kind of
Hmm.
impressive in
I thought
that
they worked
light.
way better for the first set than for the second set.
I don't know. There's some
Like
like I've
there
got a
were
tip for you. Get the point that like could be anything. It's
there
like
were
not like a
yeah.
specific.
Yeah, I feel like there were several of the sword masters where I was like, there are several that could work for this, whereas and there's only one that actually does. Was I did feel like they all pretty much had to go to their specific insult.
We might have got
Uh,
different ones too. I mean, I think there's it's
it's true.
random and there's probably more than you can
I
see
did I did get I'm pretty sure I got them all. In that I got a lot of them,
because you
but
fought
I
her
do,
multiple times.
well, I don't know about her, but in terms of
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. I
people,
mean,
yeah.
her specifically, I was
Yeah,
thinking
her
of, but yeah,
specifically, I don't know. But like as an example, the one of the first ones you learn, right, is the like you fight like a dairy farmer, how appropriate you fight like a cow, right?
yeah, classic,
Um,
classic.
she says something like, I'll milk you dry of blood," and that's the
Right.
correct one for
That
you
makes sense
fight
to
like a
me.
cow. No, it doesn't. You
Yeah,
don't. It's
I'll
not
milk
appropriate.
you.
A
How
cow
appropriate. You
doesn't.
fight like a cow.
A cow doesn't milk you. You milk a cow. That's it's only appropriate because she used the word milk. It it,
I don't
it
know.
doesn't
I think
actually
it's
follow
good.
in any way whatsoever. There's like
I
no
think it's
sense
good.
of back and forth. It
Milk
sucks.
cow.
It's
Milk
terrible.
is cow. That one's
No, it's
good. That's one of
bad.
the better
It
ones.
doesn't work. Yeah, it is. That's the problem. It doesn't work, but it does work for the dairy farmer.
No, I no, I think you're wrong. You fight like a
Now,
cow. It makes perfect sense to me. Haven't you seen Kung Pao? Remember that scene? It's a reference to that.
I guess
You
if you mean by milk you, what she means is spray you with milk, except that she's milking you of your blood, so I don't think it works.
I'll
Um,
milk you. I'll probably fight like I
that
don't know.
that
That's
being
funny.
said, I did think that the running gag of Guybrush saying how appropriate you fight like a cow in inappropriate times any time there could be a retort was very funny. Like it's not even a thing you have to do, but just like when you're training and the guy who's training you asks you, what you would retort to a different thing and you just say that one again. That's funny. When you meet the sword master again and she's just like, "Oh, look, it's this fucker," and you say how appropriate you fight. Like that's funny. Like I liked that.
Yeah.
That's a good running gag.
If there's one line that will outlast the life of this game, I think it's
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Another one might be I'm selling these fine leather jackets, but I'm not sure how much
Mm.
that is maybe leaned into more in the sequels than this
Mm.
game.
Yeah, I found myself I only did that like once or twice. I saw that was a thing I could say a lot and I just didn't like that was one that didn't catch me the first time as particularly funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it becomes funny through repetition, but it only gets repeated if you started doing it. Which is it is one of the problems with doing a running gag in a game where you decide what gags you say, right?
Right. So, I mean, Stan is another character that is, we talked about him a little, but his whole design and the fact that
Mhm.
his outfit is, I don't know the technical term for it, but it's like there's a background element that
Mm.
doesn't move. But so when
Mhm.
his arms move, it's like you're just looking through them and seeing the pattern behind them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um that's just, there's something so bizarre and charming about it, and the fact that he's a used car salesman in the pirate world.
Mhm.
But for the most part, like, there are, like, that is kind of an anachronistic gag, but for the most part the game does a good job, I think, staying more or less in the genre and the time period. There's not like, they don't break it so much to the point of there's not a rocket ship or a lightsaber or anything like that. There's cartoony stuff, but I feel like it's set pretty firmly in this pirate world, which I think also, I think actually a big part of that is the music, but the
Mhm.
graphical style and the music. The music is by Michael Land, who would work on a lot of these LucasArts games, and I just love the
Mhm.
soundtrack to this game. That's another. I mean, Maniac Mansion didn't even fucking have music,
Well, yeah, because
and
you didn't get to listen to the songs on the CDs. You didn't play with Razor.
that's true. But other than that, but it goes a long way towards making this all really feel like a world that you're
Mhm.
in, a place that you can explore that is alive,
Mhm.
and that felt cohesive to me too, as we've been talking about, in its, even in its non-cohesive cohesive way, when there's insane cartoon logic. It never, it always feels like, well, that logic still makes sense in this world as they've presented it. I never feel like I'm pulled out of it too much.
Mhm.
Anyway, let's see. What else do we need to talk about? I mean, you enjoyed the music.
Um, I did enjoy the music. Yeah, I thought the music was quite good. I, yeah, it was good and it was good pretty much throughout. Like all the different locations had their own sections and that were good and like there were a couple areas that didn't have music, and it was notable to me that when I was in a place that didn't have music, I noticed its absence, and I was like, "Hey, how come this spot doesn't have any songs playing? What the heck?" Um,
Yeah,
which is very different from something like Maniac Mansion, where the music is kind of a treat. Um, but yes, yeah, for sure, massive benefit to the thing for the music.
that is
Uh,
another thing, I think, that once you get to Monkey Island 2, if there's not music, there's at least atmospheric background noise.
mhm.
And so there are some sections of this game where it's a little awkward. Where you're like, kind of feels like there should be music, or like the song ends and then it's quiet for a second. You're like, this is weird.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think they were still figuring some of that stuff out.
Yeah, I mean that's all fine. I liked it when it was around though, so that was all good. Um, let me see here. So I have a question for you about one of the potential puzzles. So,
Hmm.
okay. So when you're on Monkey Island, this is a specific thing to drill down into, but it did occur to me. When you're on Monkey Island, you can sink your ship.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Uh, what happens if you don't?
I
Because
don't know. Great
Oh,
question.
okay. Because yeah, that was one of those things that it confused me for a long time because the way you do that is the same way that you solve an actual puzzle. And when I saw that setup, it seemed very obvious to me that what I was supposed to do was sink my ship. And and then afterwards, you got a spyglass up there and you say, "Oh, I can see some debris." So I was like, probably that's why I did that. Probably I sunk my ship so I can scour the debris. Couldn't find any debris anywhere, and it seemed like that led to nothing. And it took me off of that puzzle solution for a while because I thought I was done with that section. But I was curious if, like, what happens if you don't do that? Like, is there something that I did unlock, but I just couldn't figure that out?
I'm looking it up, and no, it's just a slightly different ending. It's just you either
Mm,
see them at the end having sunk or not.
or not. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. If I recall correctly, which I may not, in sequels, I think maybe you see those characters again, and I think it's
Mhm,
canonical that you did sink their boat, like they're pissed
yeah.
at Guybrush.
I mean, I will say I would like that. That was another thing that I didn't love. Um, I mean, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Was like I did want to see more of those characters, like the weird
Mm.
meat hook tattoo guy. I found him very early.
Yeah.
Um, and it became very clear because you can't interact with anything in his house. You just have dialogue trees, and he says something about that don't go anywhere. And he says something about like doing more when you're at sea. And my immediate thought was, oh, well, when I become a pirate for real, I can make this guy part of my crew, I guess. So I was excited to hang out with him. I liked the Swordmaster. I was excited to hang out with her. I already felt like I spent enough time hanging out with Otis in the prison, but I wouldn't mind. So when I took them off as my crew, I was kind of excited to get lots of interactions with them, maybe more dialogue trees with them, maybe they would help me solve puzzles, and then they just immediately mutinied and did nothing, which was funny. I did think that was funny, but like I don't know, I wanted to see all his tattoo tricks at sea, you know? I wanted to interact with them more. It did make me feel a little bit sad that I didn't get more interactions with them, even if they did hate me the whole time. It would have been
Yeah.
fine.
I guess
But
that was probably just a little bit, they didn't quite have the
mm,
time or budget necessary to flesh
yeah.
them out more in the puzzles.
It might have made me less frustrated on the ship too, because it might have given me more things to do. But
Yeah, yeah,
who
yeah.
knows?
It's a little interlude, really. That
Mm,
section. It's your intermission, kind of. How about these verbs? We sort of
hmm.
started talking about them much earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
And you saying how, going to a cursor, you feel like maybe you're not sure how you would feel about that versus the text. But when I play this game, I feel like every time we've played one of these games, right, all the way from Cave Adventure to now, they have constantly, like, I would say the most consistent innovation from game to game in this genre is eliminating possible verbs.
Hmm.
From from Cave Adventure to Zork, just like fewer, or at least telling you more of them in the book or something,
Hmm.
to King's Quest where it's really only a certain selection, to here in Maniac Mansion where they're all printed on the screen, and now we're down to, it was first 12, now just 9. And even these 9, it's like things like push and pull could just be one verb. Things like,
Hmm.
or even, could just be used. There's a lot of things that I think could be combined. Some things that I feel like I don't even remember using, or maybe like once you use them. I mean, like open and close. How often do you have to close something? I don't know if that ever
Yeah,
comes up.
yeah. I did it a lot, but definitely don't need to.
um, even like so many of these I just look at and I'm like, use could cover almost any of these. Or
Hmm.
like, do you really need a give when you could just click inventory and then click person, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But it sounds like maybe you appreciate them. You think they add something more to it.
It's interesting because I mean, so first of all, push and pull. It's a little.
There is a
I
puzzle that kind of
there
plays
there
with
are
that.
there are multiple puzzles where
Yeah,
directionality
yeah.
matters. And I don't know that push and pull actually do a good job describing either of those. Like
Right.
maybe if there was just like a turn verb and then arrows
Or
showed up and you had to click turn and then the arrow or something. I
right.
don't know.
Right.
Or like use and there's an arrow.
It
I
should
don't
be
know
like
exactly.
it should zoom into a different interface or something as opposed to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe that would be better. Yeah, it is interesting because maybe I'm still a little text adventure brained. I think that if I were to go back to a text adventure, I wouldn't want the words pared down like this. I think in a text adventure, a lot of the world is built through the text. So, it's a delicate balance, right? Like, you don't want people hunting for the right verb, but also the verb you use adds like texture to the world, right? Like the fact that you are unlocking something rather than just opening it matters in terms of what the world feels like, because you don't get to see it and you don't get to feel it and you don't, you know, you just get to read words. In a text adventure, some of that does get replaced with the visual, right? So you don't need as many words. It's not clear to me that I would still like, I don't know. It's not clear to me there isn't, that you aren't missing something in terms of like, I want to click on this thing to look at it versus I want to click on this thing to use it versus I want to click on this thing to do something with that versus I want to click on it to talk to it. I don't know. Maybe you could just all do that with like two buttons, right? Maybe there's just maybe just like look at and use, and then like use is either use or like if it's a person. Yeah, maybe you could do it entirely with buttons. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell
yeah,
you in
yeah.
the
I
like
mean, I guess you could, right?
Sam and Max, I think Full
Mm-hmm.
Throttle, a lot of these later ones will basically default to you have a cursor, you can
Mm-hmm.
right click to scroll through like three options, and it basically amounts to look at, maybe look at, talk to, and interact.
Mm-hmm.
And interact might be pick up, it might be open,
Mm-hmm.
it might be push the button, like it could be anything. But like 90% of the things you need to do can pretty much boil down to one
Yeah.
of those things.
I guess it really is that I'm still just very text adventure brained, where I am using the text as supplemental to the world, right? Seeing, it's seeing that I'm talking, right? Or even just mousing over something and saying like, okay, well there's left click, which is like go up to it and look at it. And then there's right click, which is use the context, right? So if it's a person you're talking, if it's a item you're using, whatever makes the most sense. Um, those like seeing which one pops up like affects me in some way because that's the word that I'm doing, and I am using the text as clues still to some degree, right? That use this versus use this with this. Like in my brain that still means something, that's giving structure to the game in some way, and it really doesn't have to. Like it could all be visual. I think I'm just used to it being that way. I do certainly think that yeah, if I were to go back to a text adventure, I would want to add a lot more. Right? Maybe in order to avoid the verb hunt, you just say like there are like 20 verbs that you need, but there's 200 verbs you can use so that you never have to
Mhm.
hunt for it. But
Yeah.
you always are, but yeah, like I guess
Yeah.
that is just it. We're transitioning from text to visuals, and in my brain, I'm still thinking in terms of text to some
Right.
degree.
It's yeah, because it's very interesting hearing your perspective
Hmm.
because I played these games before I ever played a text adventure.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like that was going backwards,
Hmm.
and to you, it's kind of the opposite, maybe. Because I do think that maybe my ideal text adventure is basically a graphic adventure just without the pictures.
Mm. To me,
But
that
I
feels
see what
like
you're saying.
yeah,
I see
like
what
you're
you're saying.
adapting, but you're not adapting to the medium. Like you don't, if you're turning a book into a movie, it's like actually a bad idea to keep all of the scenes from the book in the movie unchanged, because like it's a different medium. It's totally different, right? Like
Yeah.
you should change it in some way.
But I mean,
uh,
but then I just think back to Zork and I'm like,
mhm.
I don't know. The verb hunting was never that
Yeah.
fun to me.
Yeah.
Like,
So I mean there are ways to fix that, right? Like I don't know what
yeah,
they are, but like I would go into trying to fix that rather than just saying like just make the, because if you're making the graphics thing, why not just put some graphics on it?
right. Well, that because it's hard. That's hard.
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
that's my reason. All right. The Secret of Monkey Island. What do you think? Final thoughts and IGN ratings for this one?
Final thoughts and IGN ratings. Um, yeah, so I think it should be obvious that I like this game a lot. Um, I
This is maybe again, like the third or fourth game on our show you've completed. So that's a big
yes,
deal.
and it might be the longest one that I've completed too,
Yeah,
in terms of
that's
the
very
amount of.
possible.
I don't think I played this long on any other game that I completed. I'm like sure that's got to be true. Um,
Yeah.
so yes, I mean I liked this game a lot. It's everything I said. I think narratively this game is quite good. The characterization is quite good. The writing is quite good. The puzzles are quite fun and intuitive in an odd sense. There are a couple of hiccups where things don't quite go right. Um or where things aren't quite that good, where I did have to look things up, and I thought it felt like bullshit, and it felt like I probably would have been stuck here forever. Like I don't know that I would have intuited my way through it. But there were a lot of other puzzles where I was stuck there for a long time and eventually did intuit my way out. The environments were generally pretty good. Um some of the stuff in the city, it feels a little constricted, but when you get out onto an open map again, and you're going between those, it does feel like you're traveling around. Guybrush as a design is great, visuals wise. The colors and backgrounds look good. The music is quite good. Um, to me, this does feel like a potential best in class, right? Like I don't I know why this is a classic. And this does feel like a game to beat. Right? Like this is the sort of thing where you start saying like how much better are we going to get in terms of adventure games? Like are if I play a bunch of them, am I going to say like I guess this is really the question is, do I need to leave room to grow in this genre? Or is this kind of like a benchmark of like, this is how good I think this genre is compared to other genres, right?
Yeah.
Because of that, I mean, this game has to be like an extraordinarily high rated game. Um, let's see here. I do think that this is a genre that I could really like a lot. Uh, I like dark rides. I want a genre based off of dark rides to
Hell yeah.
be good.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
but I also do want to give it some space, because there could be games that don't have those little bullshit hiccups. There could be games that, do this, but somehow even more so. There are I don't know. I feel like I don't want to just like go crazy with it. But I do want to give it its place as like this is it. This is what this genre gives us. So obviously this is blowing like Maniac Mansion out of the water in that regard. I think that for now, just to make sure that nothing insane happens, I'm going to give Monkey Island a 9.2 out of 10. My
Wow.
highest rated game.
Wow. Holy shit. That's crazy, actually. Holy shit. Wow. You gave it higher than Super Mario Brothers. Wow.
Yeah, I mean this is really the thing is that like I really liked Super Mario Brothers. Like this does not have the iconic Goombas. It does not have the iconic music, but I also do look at Super Mario Brothers and I think as a platforming genre, like as a genre, like where is this going from here? This is a progenitor. And like I guess this is a progenitor of the genre, but I don't know. Like if you were to say like this is what adventure games are, they're done. This is what you get. I don't think that I would be looking at this and saying like how awful, right? That's all we got. I would be like, okay, yeah, sure, I get that. That's the genre. Um,
Yeah, I think where the genre goes from here, besides the UI smoothing
mhm,
over elements, is and where the genre kind of can evolve and what people might prefer from one game to another
mhm,
is the types of puzzles, the complexity of the puzzles, and also the stories themselves,
mhm,
the writing of the characters.
sure.
I mean, for me, like 50% or more of what I love about these games is the stories. So then it
Mhm,
comes down to almost like, okay, we've established not to, I don't want to break out the Citizen Kane
mm,
talk on this show, but it's like we've established here what a movie is. Now it's just, well, which script do you prefer?
mhm,
Which
mhm.
actors do you like? As opposed to talking so much about the medium itself and the
Yeah.
formatting.
Yeah, I mean, really, the only points to take off of this are like there could have been more little guy, like cute little guys, Goomba type things. There were a few characters. Guybrush is great, but there were a few characters that I would have liked to have seen even more of, even though what I did see. And there were a couple of nitpicks about like the 3 of the 100 puzzles. Right, that's not a lot of points off.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a game that I have played many times, which is not something I do that much. I'm not a person who replays games very often. But there's something about, I think because it's more story focused and dialogue heavy, for some reason, I personally enjoy re experiencing that often more than just pure gameplay. It feels more like rewatching a movie or something. Um, and I wait long enough in between that, like I said, I forget a lot of the puzzles. So sometimes I can feel like, oh, I'm experiencing it brand new all over again. How fun.
Hmm.
And also, the game is not terribly long. So I find it makes for a nice, comforting replay. I can't remember, to be honest, if this was actually the first point and click adventure game that I played. It's very, very likely it was, but I don't know. I might have come to Sam and Max first or something else. But I still have to credit this with mostly igniting my passion for this genre. It is really my favorite genre of video game. I love this type of game as a medium for storytelling, mostly, and the types of puzzles that they involve and the feeling I get of exploring these worlds. Like you said, games based on dark rides. It's not a coincidence that I love Disney theme parks and I love these games. They very much have that kind of atmosphere of, wow, you're on an adventure, you're experiencing a story with characters and stakes and atmosphere and music, but also nothing will ever hurt you and you're
Hmm.
safe
Hmm.
and you can do whatever you want and just have a good time. The worst thing that can happen to you here is you get a little bit stumped. And other than that, you are just sailing and loving life, literally, in the case of a Monkey Island game, sailing. Um, so I am just in love with this genre, and this is definitely a highlight, a hallmark. I think there are some other games that I like more than this one, but for some reason, this is one that I have gone back to more often. Maybe it's because there are sequels, so a lot of times I'll want to replay the games before I go to the sequels. But anyway, all that is to say, I do love this game. It is one of my favorites. However, it is not like top 5 kind of a game like I've talked about before. There are some little issues that you mentioned. Some of the puzzles can be obscure. I personally feel that the first half of the game is stronger than the second.
Hmm.
I think some of that might just be due to atmosphere. I just love Melee Island so much,
Hmm.
and walking around those areas just fills me with this nostalgic warmth that when I get to Monkey Island, it kind of feels like, yeah, there's great stuff here still, but all the iconic stuff pretty much already happened in the first part of the game. I
Yeah.
I kind of don't need the rest of this as much. So where am I gonna land on this game? God, I'm really like tempted to kind of just meet you right where you are, and we could be twinsies on this game.
Mm.
Part of me
Mm.
also just wants to give it a straight 9 because it came out in 1990, so a 9-0 for
Mm.
9-0, that feels pretty good. But you know what? The version that we played and that I'm most familiar with came out in 1992. So I'm giving it a 9-2 for 9-2.
Okay. There you go.
And that is, for me, by the way, the first game on this show that I have given anything in the 9 range. I have
Mm.
given 10s before, and I have given things in the 8s, but never the 9s until now. And this is for you only
Wow.
your second in that range. Oh, no, sorry, it's your third,
Uh,
actually.
yeah, it is my third technically. Yeah, I mean, going into this episode, my thought, and I didn't know what I was going to do until the very end here, but my thought was this is either going to tie at the top of the games that I've had, or I'm going to put it a little bit higher. And I really wasn't sure because I was all like, is it crazy to make this the highest rated game so far? And you know what? Maybe I am still just a hitchhiker nerd loser at heart. You know, maybe I just love Monty Python too much. Uh, it
Yeah,
just worked
maybe.
for me.
Maybe you
I
do.
do. I do agree with you that that the first half of this game is way stronger, but I do also think that really the only thing that would be different is like just more characters and dialogue trees. Like I did actually really like how more of the map was open. Um like I did think walking through the streets of Melee Island, like each individual location was kind of fun, but it was also just kind of like, all right, there's like section and like three buildings or something. And I kind of liked walking along paths on a big island better on Melee Island than being in the town. And I got a lot more of that on the island. It really was just like, man, you spend so much time before you even find these cannibals, and you really don't have the same level of like, go back and have a conversation with this cannibal, and then go find this guy over here and go have a conversation with him, and then go over here and have an altercation with, oh, you know what I mean? If there had been more castaways and more groups and more whatever, I easily think that they could have had that be just as filled out.
Yeah, I think Melee Island just, the bottom line is it feels more like a real place.
Hmm.
And to me, Monkey Island feels more like we made 5 spots that you have to walk between for puzzles. It
Interesting.
doesn't feel as much like, I believe that this world existed even before I showed up and was playing a video game.
That's interesting because I didn't really have that issue. Like the geography of it did work for me. The fact that I can't pass the mountains without a boat, and I'm going along this trail to find this fort. But like I saw that trail was there. Like I found that fort because I was like, can I go along this like rim trail? I can. Um, there's a thing with like a pirate who's or the pirate. Yeah, there's like a corpse hanging up, and I was like, I should just be able to cut this rope, but for whatever reason I can't. Oh, but he's attached to a log. I'm in a dry riverbed. Hey, look at that. I'm in a dry riverbed. There's a dam there. If I flooded it, the log would float. He would come down. Like the zones, the geography of the island did in fact feel interconnected to me. The fact that I could see sights, right? Like I could see the high rock from the beach. I don't know. I did get the sense that Monkey Island was a place.
Yeah,
But
I
maybe
think
I'm
it's,
also more outdoorsy than you. I don't know. Maybe
well,
that didn't connect in that way.
yeah, perhaps. I mean, I mean, I just found it like on the
Mhm.
island, Monkey Island in particular. I thought some of the walks between locations
Mm.
are pretty long, and I was like, this is kind of boring. I wish I could just like
I
get
guess
to the places faster.
that is true.
Um, but also on Melee Island, like you said, there's
Mhm.
way more characters to interact with,
Yes.
and on Monkey Island, it's so confusing. They both start with M,
Mhm.
but on Monkey Island, I think I'm spending. It almost feels like the game said, "Okay, you had your fun with all the funny dialogue and characters. It's puzzle time now."
Yeah.
And I think it's a little unbalanced in that way, where maybe even in the first half too, like I said, it's like maybe there should have been a little less dialogue in the first half and a little more in the second half. In the second half, I feel more like, oh, I'm just thinking of puzzles and I'm just getting stuck and trying stuff. And there isn't as much, oh, I get to do a really silly cutscene now.
Yeah, I
kind of
mean, I
thing.
don't think it's too much in the beginning. I would have welcomed that much at the like on Monkey Island itself. Like I guess that
Yeah.
maybe there's supposed to be some sense of being a castaway, so you're like alone
Right.
on your own. But
It's a
like
different atmosphere.
yeah, I would not have minded it if instead of your crew mutinying, they came to the beach so you could come back to the beach and you can talk to your crew who will not go into the jungle. There's like 3 other sets of castaways as opposed to who are always in the same spot as opposed to one guy who just pops up in various locations. There's like 3 different tribes of cannibals instead of one. The monkey that you meet talks to you and asks for bananas, right? Like you know,
Sure.
you could have had any of these things, right?
I mean, maybe it really is the fact that almost every location on Monkey Island is a single screen.
hmm
Whereas in Melee Island, once you're in the village, you actually are moving throughout. There's multiple
hmm
connected screens with different buildings you go inside. So I think maybe that is just the illusion that makes me feel like, oh, this is a connected place, as opposed to like, yeah, you can see their location on the island, but like they could have
Yeah.
put these 5 spots anywhere, and I would have believed it.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
guess
know?
maybe this is just also me being like, I like a good map because I look at the city
You
and I'm
do
like, yeah,
love
I
maps.
do love a good map. So like that is kind of a thing where, like it's true that everything on Monkey Island is one screen, but like those screens have corresponding zones on the map and the geography of the map makes sense and is connected. Whereas, even the different locations on Melee Island that aren't the town, it is kind of just like here's the path through the woods. It's just a path through the woods, and then there's like 3 houses, and they could kind of be anywhere, right? As opposed to like, well, that ravine's over here by the crack, and that's over on the rim trail, and these are the beaches that are exposed, so that all the beach sections have to be there, and that's the clearing where the head, and there's the river, and there's the dam, and there's the footpath, and blah 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 blah. So like it did still feel connected to me because I liked the map, but
It
yeah,
tracks
it is
because
empty.
of all the characters in the game, you most remind me of Herman Toothrot, the insane
Right.
hermit who's dirty and pantsless and
Uh-huh.
lives on the island alone.
Correct. Yeah.
And has a disheveled, unkempt, ugly beard.
And he could easily leave at any time, but he just doesn't because he's like, Aren't you gonna save me?"
Yeah, that's a great reveal. All right. Well, that's the secret of Monkey Island. I mean, this is great.
Mhm.
Back when we played King's Quest, I was a little nervous because you hated it. I wonder if you went back and played another King's Quest, if maybe you might even appreciate it a little bit more with some of this knowledge, or if you would appreciate it even less. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I do feel like like this is a genre. This whole class of games, text adventures through adventure games, has always felt like this is the sort of thing that I like. But a lot of these particular iterations just have too many hangups where I'm like, yeah, but like you've taken this sort of thing that I like and then you put a billion barriers in between me and liking it. So, you've knocked down my score to a 6 or whatever. Whereas with this, it's like, yeah, you've taken this thing that I like and you put like half a barrier, so it's my highest rated game. you know.
Never would have predicted it. Wild.
Hmm.
The question now is, where do we go from here? Because the problem is I could fill out the rest of this podcast with just LucasArts games. And it's like, well, Monkey Island 2 is an obvious next step, or there's still of course we got to do Sam and Max and Day of the Tentacle, but there's also, we skipped over Loom, which is another interesting game. We skipped over plenty of other Sierra games that might fit in somewhere. None of them are on the schedule for this season, but I don't know. Maybe listeners will tell us what they are hoping to hear from us sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we got time. We got a lot of genres to explore.
It's true. It's very, very true. Hey, those are our thoughts on the game, but let's quickly take a look at some old reviews in Retro Review Corner.
Wow.
Which I think will give us some interesting perspective here. Here's a review from 1990 from Computer and Video Games magazine, written by one Paul Glancy. He says, the Lucasfilm adventures have always been favorites in our office. Favorites spelled with a U because they're British.
Ew.
But this is the first one I've wanted to play right until the end. In the week since I got hold of this game, I've spent every spare moment playing it and enjoying it. Zach McCracken had a great sense of humor, and Indy had a great plot, but this has both. He talks about how the movie-like presentation makes it feel like you're taking part in a comedy film. He says the puzzles are brilliantly conceived. He says it's an easy-to-use point-and-click command system. So even the laser brains with keyboard phobia have no excuse not to get hold of this utterly enthralling game at once. That leads us to another important
What?
question that we didn't bring up.
What does that mean?
Laser brains? I don't know.
Laser brains with keyboard.
I think he
phobia.
means people. I don't know about
like an
laser brains.
arcade, maybe.
Oh, perhaps. Yes. People who are just like, computer games are too complex and scary and weird.
I don't want to sit down and type at a computer. I want to
Right.
like get in the arcade and go pew 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 with my
Right.
ship or something. Yeah.
You cracked it. But I presume you did play this game with your brand new mouse.
I
Is that
did play
correct?
this game with my mouse.
Okay, great. And you liked the feel of it. That worked for you.
It did. It did. I don't know. You know, having played Maniac Mansion with the touchpad, I don't know if it would have made a huge difference because there were one or two sections in there that were a problem for that because of like speed. But over here, I don't know if it would have been as big of a deal because most of the things didn't require speed. But I do think quick access to both left and right click, since that can sometimes be a pain. You know, you've got to click on the right side of the stupid thing. um,
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
have mattered. It's hard to know because I also would have said in Wolfenstein, like, I don't know that it's going to matter that much because the problem's the keyboard. But then it did matter because it made up for it. So I don't know. But it worked. It was good.
I'm glad that it worked. Here's another review from 91 from Amiga Power. And they say they talk a little bit about the interface that we've just discussed. They say you may be pretty amazed to learn that the whole thing is done with the mouse using a point and click interface. This means that at any point, the computer will display all possible options on screen. Even when holding conversations with other characters, all you have to do is move the mouse onto one of the various possible lines on offer, then click the mouse button. Hey, presto, your character speaks.
Wow.
So they're
Man,
amazed
Mouse
by
is
this.
brand new. Mouse is brand new. I guess we got to do Minesweeper next week as the mouse game. That now that they exist, you've got to learn to use them.
Yeah. Maybe we will. You know, they compliment the music. They say this part I thought was insane. They say, well, actually, let me read this first about the look and feel of the world. That they say it's very cinematic. They call it. Supposedly, LucasArts said it was, quote, a truly cinematic experience. And this reviewer said, we're not just talking about screen displays that look as if they were done under the guidance of Ridley Scott. It goes further than that. Move your guy and he'll actually react correctly to the 3D-ness of the scene. The camera panning all the while. And of course, that groovy music I've already mentioned actually changes to suit the scene too. So that's something that, you know, we're kind of taking for granted.
Mhm.
Think about, I mean, Maniac Mansion panned around the mansion too, but it was just left to right. It was all kind of still very video game horizontal level based. And this is a game where you can go forward, back, towards the
That's
camera,
true.
away, in a way that even King's Quest did not really do.
Yeah, that's all true.
That adds to that. They then say the last ability of the game is the only sticking point. But this is a problem that can't be avoided with adventures. A projected 30-hour playtime may not seem like much for £24.99.
Jesus.
But when it's 30 hours of pure fun and satisfaction, it's not much of a grumble.
That's a lot.
This is insane. First of all, on two levels. First of all, this game is not 30 hours long unless you are really bad at
I
puzzles.
mean, I guess everybody back then was stupid.
Second of all, if a game lasts me 30 hours now, I'm like, damn, I got my fucking money's worth. That is a good game.
Yeah.
30 hours is a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what this person's talking about. Maybe in England, hours are different.
Yeah, that could be. That could be.
It's
Maybe
Euro
I think
hours.
everyone just was stupid back then. I think
Well,
that's what it was. People were just dumb.
This is a UK publication.
Yeah, they're dumb over there too, I guess. I don't know. Like, I spent a lot of time on this game and got stuck in quite a few places, and I would have, like, there were the 2 points that I just had to look forward. I would have been fucking stuck there. I mean, would I have been stuck there forever, or would I have just like waited a month and come back to it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But even so, add all that up to get 30 hours, nowhere near.
I could say if you really have never played this and you're struggling, maybe like 10, 15 might be the absolute max of time. But beyond that, I'm like, are you even trying?
I mean, it could be. I don't know. I probably I had to have hit 10 on this. I must have.
I feel like
There's no
by 15
way I
hours, you could beat it just by literally clicking on every possible interaction and doing trial and error practically. But hey, what do I know? Maybe I'm just being a snob about it. Last week we played Wolfenstein 3D, and I quickly just want to read a couple of comments from Avatar Protocol about our experience with that game.
Okay. Let's hear.
Avatar Protocol here talked about how we talked about a lot about strafing and how we weren't really good at it in Wolfenstein. Avatar says, I learned that you essentially need to learn movement with strafing as your default movement. Almost all of your movement in the footage is turning and walking forward. What you need to try and learn is to hold Alt all the time and only release it when you need to turn and hold Alt again, even when you're moving forward and backward. That way you can move constantly while shooting. When you stop to turn, you're basically screwed. You want to practice this kind of moving and shooting even if you're missing. And as you get more used to the movement and aligning the center of your screen with the enemy, you'll become more accurate. This is especially valuable with slow-moving projectiles like fireballs because the enemy can never hit you if you're constantly moving and you're still shooting them with hit-scan weapons. This is good advice. I think the issue is that Wolfenstein, for 90% of the game, doesn't require you to do that well. So that by the time felt that I needed it, it was too late for me to learn it.
Yeah, so that is good advice, and it sounds, I was thinking that was probably true. Like, as I got more comfortable playing, I was trying to strafe more, and it did feel like I would get a lot better. Like, the idea that extends forever, like more, no, always do it, sounds intuitively true to me. That being said, as I said at the end, I do think that, like, the primary failing, one of the major failings of Wolfenstein, and I liked it, but the thing keeping it from having like a really good high score was that it didn't really encourage me to get better. Right? Like, it's true. I played on easy baby difficulty where you can get away with not being good, and if I got better at it, I could be way better. But I hear advice like this, and I just think, like, I don't know, it doesn't sound particularly fulfilling to me to be good at Wolfenstein. Like, you're probably right. If I did that, I could get better, but why would I want to do that? Which is very different from something like Mario, where I am just like, boy, I sure do suck. It'd be nice if I got better. I should try to train that. Right? Like, I'm not looking at Mario like, who gives a fuck if I ever play that well? Whatever. Why can't I just play easy baby difficulty and never have to try? Right? Whereas in Wolfenstein, it was just like, I just want to shoot some Nazis or something. I don't want to have to try. If that's true about Doom, though, that'll be fine because, then I will enjoy Doom because it'll make me want to get better at it, and then maybe I'll try to get better at it. So it won't really matter that I didn't try to get good at Wolfenstein, right? Like if the game is encouraging me to get better, then I'll enjoy trying, right? Even if I'm bad. But if, I just don't. I mean, again, though, to Wolfenstein's credit, it did let me play without being good. So there you go.
Yeah. By the way, I'll also add my own little patch notes after watching your Wolfenstein footage last week. I will say, first of all, you said your gameplay might be very jerky and hard to watch, and it was. And I also want to say, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's crazy. The way that you played did kind of make me nauseous. It was insane to watch.
I had a feeling I might be doing that.
It was insane. The movement of you just constantly jerking forward and back was like, what the fuck are you doing? It was crazy. It was upsetting. So I apologize to everybody who had to watch that.
I did know as I was doing it, I was like, I bet someone else watching this would probably be very upset right now because I know this is the sort of thing that makes people feel nauseous. It just doesn't affect or bother me in any way. So
what is the advantage? I don't understand what makes you do that.
Well, I want to see what's over there. Oh, look over there. I'll move back. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just looking around. I'm having fun. I want to look over there and there and.
You're a dumbass. It was also weird watching your footage because you were playing in the lower difficulty with fewer enemies.
Yeah.
There's so many, like when I was scrolling through my footage, it was very easy for me to go, oh, here's a part that I haven't used before because I could always tell if there's enemies, that means I'm in a new area. But in yours, often you're in new areas, but everything looks the same and there aren't enemies because you're playing on baby mode.
So I made it a little harder for myself.
I actually think you did. I actually think that you probably got lost and confused way more because there were no breadcrumbs for you in many areas.
That's really funny. Well, I probably could have played on like easy, not baby, when I had the mouse, but it was just not viable before I did.
I wonder, honestly, if even the normal difficulty, like as long as you make use of the quick save, might actually be easier to play than the other ones.
I before I had the mouse, I was trying that, and I just got hard stuck on it, with the touchpad. Yeah. So,
but anyway, Avatar Protocol also comments, of course, because we brought up Ultima Underworld as another 3D simulating game. He says it actually predates Wolfenstein 3D by just a couple of months. Don't forget Ultima 4, though. You'll get extra appreciation after having played Ultima 1 first. There's more to the games than the graphic style changes. Ultima Underworld 2 is a very significant improvement over Ultima 1, even though it uses the same or very similar engine. But I don't think playing only that one would fit your format. And the Ultima series is all connected. It's not like Final Fantasy, with the exception that 1 through 3 are pretty samey, hero versus villain fare. Ultima 4 onwards is a sharp departure, which is part of why skipping 2 and 3 works. Just rest assured, listeners, we will get back to the Ultima series at some point.
We have not forgotten Ultima 4. It is on our list. I
don't know about Underworld, though.
Yes.
You'll have to let us know. We'll have to decide about Underworld, what we're doing with that. It's hard. There's to fit in because there's so many. The more games we play, then the more I also want to fit in sequels to the games that we liked or that are interesting. But then I still want to not, avoid new series we haven't done yet. It's just hard to fit them all in somewhere.
Well, hopefully within the next year or so, we'll have at least gotten a foothold in most places. So it'll be a lot easier to just focus in on what, we want to or what people want us to.
Yeah. Well, we'll finish this season out first before we get ahead of ourselves. If you'd like to leave a comment on the show, you can and do it on YouTube or email us, badwithgamespodcast@gmail.com. We'll read it on the show. And please go ahead and support us on Patreon. If you enjoy listening to this, we could really use your help over there. We're desperate for it. You can join our Discord for $5 a month. And in addition to that, you will get bonus weekly episodes where we talk about video game adaptations, spin-offs, and other stuff. For example, this week, if you like comedies, we're going to be talking about the 1995 Adam Sandler classic, Billy Madison. Sort of like Monkey Island, Madison Island.
I still
There's
haven't
something there.
decided if this is going to be the one that I pretend to have watched and then see if you can
No, no,
figure it
no.
out.
You are
I might do
going to
that.
watch it.
It's fully
No, no, no.
possible I'll do that. You never know.
No,
I
no.
mean,
We will both have watched it for this week's show. Rest assured, listeners, your $5 will be well spent. Next week on the show, we're going back
yeah.
to another Sega Genesis game. And we will be playing around with Echo the Dolphin.
Hell yeah. I'm excited for this one.
I mean, this is a different one. It's like not really a platformer. It's kind of a different sort of a thing. Not like another, we're getting to a point where we're not always going to be talking about, the genre defining.
Right.
It's just kind of a game doing its thing, and we're going to give it a shot.
All right. Enjoy.
That's it. Enjoy your life. Really.
Gamers out.
Bye.